have entered the PM Entertainment Podcast.
Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of the PM Entertainment Podcast, the show that realizes that a somewhat compromised soundtrack can't dwindle the sheer ecstatic delight of throwing an aging stuntman under a car at high speed, that every dead dog, no matter how obviously taxidermied, needs to be fully avenged with furious anger and a ton of C4, and the show that does such exhaustive deep dives on previously thought of as either obscure or throwaway shelf stuffers in the bloated action section of your 1990s video store that we sincerely hope to elevate them to legendary and vital film status for decades to come, to the point where even Ivy League institutions might teach courses in the speed of Jeff Speakman's arms and why a school bus makes an excellent getaway vehicle. I refer, of course, to the company that literally gives this podcast its name, from the minds of those explosion and car chase Barnum and Baileys, Rick Pepin and Joseph Mehy, the P and the M of PM Entertainment. I'm your host, John Cross, and don't forget, if you like the show, please remember to rate and review us on any of the podcasting platforms you use, share our Facebook and Instagram posts, like, comment, and you can contact us via our email, pmentpod@gmail.com. That's pmentpod@gmail.com. This week, we introduce a new PM Entertainment All-Star onto the show. We delve into the world of dirty politics and even dirtier hairpieces. We ask why a campaign manager would be faster, stronger, and more able to slap a baton into next week than your own head of security. Our jaws are slack as Captain Kirk himself is drowned in a pond. We wonder if this movie was somehow a precursor to John Wick. And we move into the later era of PM, where they still have a lot of gas in the tank, but the school bus they're trying to escape in might not get as far as you'd like. We're talking, of course, all about Land of the Free. It's from 1998 and marks the PM debut of Mr. Kenpo himself, Jeff Speakman. It's the only directorial credit for PM, a veteran of 70s TV series, 80s TV movies, and 90s TV series and TV movies, Jerry Jameson, and was written by the minds and typewriters behind the Corey Feldman and Corey Haim video classic, Busted. Maria James, one of the writers, also occasionally acted and apparently appeared in 2 episodes of Wurzel Gummidge Down Under as Eloise in 1989. But somewhere in my head is telling me that that's just IMDb messing up. But who knows? Could be. It's also a movie that is littered with familiar names and faces in small but pivotal parts. There's Charles Robinson, who you might all know as Mac from Night Court, Gary Carlos Cervantes, who had previously shown up in Commando, Extreme Prejudice, Beverly Hills Cop 2, Police Academy 6, City Under Siege, One Man Force, Death Warrant, and Marked for Death. Renowned director Arthur Hiller makes a cameo. We talk about him and his luxurious hair more in the show. Clint and Ron Howard's dad, Rance Howard, who as well as a career dating back to the late 50s and early 60s, and a performance as Ninja Negotiator in 1991's 9.5 Ninjas, also appeared in the following PM Entertainment films: Forced to Kill, Bigfoot, The Unforgettable Encounter, Tiger Heart, Busted, and The Sender, as well as the Olivia Gruner vehicle, Savate, which was not produced by PM Entertainment, but was produced by FM Entertainment, so it felt close enough to get a mention here. And lastly, Bernie Koppel, who is most known as Dr. Bricker from The Love Boat. Our guest this week is the same guest as we had last week, so really requires very little introduction at this point, except to say that as the writer and host of the direct-to-video connoisseur blog and podcast, the man most definitely knows his onions. And by onions, we mean straight-to-video action films and the occasional smattering of 90s erotic thrillers. It truly is an enviable resume. Ladies and jerks, it's Matt Poirier. Matt Poirier, you pick. How are you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for having me on again. I'm excited for this movie. So, yeah.
Yeah, so as I said, you've been on twice now. And the first time anyone guests, I have my Bernard Pivot level of 3 questions or 4 questions that get to the very core of you. They get to the very heart of the action fan that burns passionately within all of us. And so that's what I do the first thing. The second time, we talked more about you, right? Didn't we talk about like your books and your podcast and other stuff like that? And we talked sort of more about you, the man. Yeah. Well, let's pivot back a little bit to action films. Let's talk action films, but we're going to connect them to you, the man, because you, the man, you, the man, and you, the movie lover. We're going to talk about what movies you've reviewed in some capacity, either blog format or podcast, on your various direct-to-video connoisseur properties.
Yeah. I mean, I think in terms of ones that, pretty much, I want to say everything except for, of course, Steel Frontier that the first one that I did on here. I haven't reviewed that one yet on the site. And then Intent to Kill that you did in a recent episode, I think, right? Was that the one, Tracy Lords? I haven't even seen that one yet. Everything else that we've covered so far, I've reviewed on the site.
Right.
So like Sweeper, covered it on the site, but then also did a podcast episode with Chris Kavinsky from Bulletproof, which was a lot of fun. We covered a lot of different fun parts of that one there. I'm trying to think though if any of the other ones that we've done, that you've done on the podcast, that I've done on a podcast episode, and it might just be Sweeper of the ones you've done so far. Right. Oh, Recoil. We did Recoil, or was it Rage? Was it Rage that you did?
Rage.
Yeah. So I had Rich Haas from DTV Digest on, and we did this like marathon 4-hour episode, which just happened to be my 150th episode, so it kind of worked out. But where we did Rage and Recoil in the same episode, and
nice.
Just a ton of stuff on those movies. Recoil is when I reviewed it on the site. It comes up a lot because it was like this like cooking ground for or this like training ground for like the best stunt workers of the 2010s. Like, Spiro Rosatos was stunt coordinator on. Chad Stahelski from the John Wick movies. He in the Matrix movies, he did Recoil. He did stunt work on Recoil. Darren Prescott, who was the action or the stunt coordinator for the John Wick movies, working with Stahelski, but also like Deadpool, actually Madam Web is the one that he did. He's in that movie. It's insane. I think there's a few other names too that I'm not even thinking of right now that are, also, it's like every time you look at a name, you're like, oh, if I, go down the rabbit hole. So, Recoil is one of those ones that, I reviewed it on the site a long time ago. And then of course, like I said, I did a podcast episode on it. Just such a fantastic one.
Nice. And what have you reviewed in the last couple of weeks? Like if someone wants to be like, well, what is Matt writing about now? What is your last 2 podcasts and what are your last 2 blogs? So people can go find it on Direct to Video Connoisseur, blogspot.com.
Yes, Blogspot, blogspot.com. Exactly. Yeah. So episode 209 of the podcast that we just released this past week, we did a canon classic. We did Invasion USA with Freddie Young from Full Moon Reviews. So that was the last one there. And then not action movies, but when you were on, we did 2 erotic thrillers. I'm trying to think the action movie that we would have done before that. We had
we did T-Force.
T-Force, that's right. When you were on, we did T-Force. That was a great episode. So, yeah, that's when people can look back in the archives. And then I had Todd Liebenow from Forgotten Films on. We did the first American Ninja movie. I think that was episode 206. So those are the
first American Ninja movie, the first ninja movie to show us that ninjas could be rainbow colored. Like there were red ninjas, green ninjas, yellow ninjas, white ninjas, black ninjas. All the colors of the Benetton rainbow were represented in that ninja. Because normally people just think black. Maybe they think like there's desert ninjas and like sand colored or beige clothing. But most people, you go ninja. What's the first image, right? The black hood, black, with maybe like a red headband. Maybe they're accessorizing just a little bit, just to pop a color, Matt, just in case they spot a female ninja in the wild and they have to do a sort of a strut. It's like a ninja strut. They puff their chests up and they have these large mucus sacs in their necks that grow to great sizes.
So
People
they
don't
were
know that
maps,
about
right?
people don't know that about ninjas, but they also perform like weird Amazonian birds when it comes to a mating ritual in a jungle. So most people think of that, right? No, American Ninja has red, yellow, green, blue, black, white. It's got everything. You can paint a rainbow, so can American Ninja.
Yes. Well, because the thing I learned, I found this on Wikipedia, but it's kind of looking into the history of ninjas just to kind of understand how this cultural phenomenon that comes in the 80s it was to be. And actually, ninjas, the historical ninja from, feudal Japan, they dressed like their enemies, and they were like masters of subterfuge. And so then when they were depicting ninjas in theater, in Japanese theater, they'd have them dress in black to mimic them being invisible.
Right.
And so that's where the black outfit came in. So actually the closest thing to actual ninjas that Canon did was Invasion USA, because the baddies dressed like the enemy, right? They dressed like police officers, they dressed like military people, and then started causing all kinds of issues. But you're right. Like Canon was just like, well, why don't we have different colored ninjas?
Right.
If they're only black because that's what they look like in theater, we could make them any color. And then Godfrey Ho saw that and said, "Oh,
Godfrey Ho took it to the next level."
It's like, not only do we have different colored ninjas, but we'll get this script from ski resorts in America that I've been to and splash the word ninja across the bandanas and stuff. And so not only are they different colors, it's like, and then of course Mortal Kombat, right? Mortal Kombat was like, oh, well, we can have one person playing a ninja and then just color swap and make 5 or 10 characters in the video game. That's perfect. So the trend that American Ninja started with the different colored ninjas was just absolutely amazing.
It just, it never ends. It goes on today, Matt. It goes on today. And so that's fantastic. American Ninja and Invasion USA and T-Force and anything else before we jump into today's film.
No. I mean, on the site, we did Acts of Vengeance, Isaac Florentine movie. So I think one of the few directors out there who's really kind of keeping to the old tradition of PM. It was an Isaac Florentine, and Acts of Vengeance, Antonio Banderas movie. I think I won't say it lives up to it. I think for modern action, it works. But I think when you think of modern DTV action, I mean, you really probably wouldn't be able to take the Pepsi challenge with like a lot of these PM flicks. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of amazing how DTV action has gotten watered down with a lot of CGI effects. Yeah. Budgets are a lot, what PM was working on, it's even less now. And so, when you get someone like an Isaac Florentine or Jesse V. Johnson, and of course, the action or the fight choreographer on Acts of Vengeance is Tim Mann, who I would say, you had Art Camacho.
He the man.
Right, he the man. Exactly.
He Tim Mann.
Exactly. You had Art Camacho on. Tim Mann's kind of a next generation of great fight choreographers. He's really good there too. So
he's Tim Mann.
He's Tim Mann. Okay. Yeah, but those are the sites. Yeah, those ones we have on the site. Yeah, again, Acts of Vengeance is an interesting one to check out. I think Isaac Florentine just is director. I think for people, you're looking for more modern DTV stuff. Though he has stuff from this time period too that's really good. So
nice. Okay, so before we start our deep delve, you know what time it is by the beating of the drums. It's time for
It's the PM Entertainment Bullet Points.
All right, so we have attempted assassination and shootout in slow motion, foot chase, shoving well-placed stunt persons over onto the sidewalk, or they could just be confused passers-by, who knows? Various Kenpo-fueled beatings, a campaign security guard assassinating a man at point-blank range and never facing any consequences for it, a perplexingly bad wig, strangulation, assassination in the shower, foot chase throughout an office skyscraper ending in die-hard fire hose jump from the roof, Speakman hanging upside down in full view of everyone yet remaining undetected by a security guard. Speakman with a shotgun. Curse the obvious and inevitable betrayal of friend entrusted to help him. Car crashes, car chases, car flips on fire, car flips with luggage on the roof, car flips with canoe on the roof, Speakman running over a car's hood, impractical school bus chase. Old dude stunt guy climbs out of a car, walks across the hood and initiates huge fight in the back of a school bus with Speakman. Aforementioned old dude stunt person being thrown out of school bus and going under the tires of the car behind it. Speakman hanging off the back of the school bus for entirely too long. School bus explosion, almost death of family. Running away from second school bus explosion while carrying wife. Single-handed attack on evil villain compound complete with takeout of random hench persons. Escape from villain lair explosion in classic car. Judge's gratuitous luxurious hair, gratuitous promotion of Kenpo gear, gratuitous synth flute accompanied sex scene featuring a minor character you're not sure you know who exactly they are until you hear a well-timed answer phone message, gratuitous horned-up wife while on the run, gratuitous Don Stroud cameo, gratuitous henchman explosion in seedy hotel, gratuitous Shatner in silk blue bathrobe scene, gratuitous taxidermied dead dog, also Chekhov's dead dog, Chekhov's helicopter, and Chekhov's quacking kid. Helicopter fight, inexplicably long countdown to C4 detonation. On said helicopter, helicopter explosion, Shatner versus Speakman, Kirk is down, Kirk is drowned.
Yeah, I was trying to see if I mean, the director of this movie did like a lot of stuff like in the 60s and stuff, but he did continue to work into we did some Walker Texas Ranger episodes, but I think this is the only PM flick he does. And it's interesting. He was a TV guy and they must have needed somebody. I mean, it is Ken Blakey is the cinematographer. So you get that. So it still has enough of the PM feel with his cinematography. I think it's just interesting, but it is, like you said, it's a different crew. It also was another production company, I think, in addition to PM that worked on it as well. So it's like, if it wasn't for Ken Blakey and Coles McKay doing stunts, it might be a little bit unique from a PM film, but they seem to make it PM enough that you know what you're looking at.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely PM enough. And another, so Maria James, who wrote Land of the Free, also wrote another PM Entertainment classic. Although I think maybe they just distributed or did. They're here with like 3 other production companies, but that is the Corey Haim, Corey Feldman comedy classic, Busted, which is basically the 2 Coreys do Vice Academy.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. I think you're right. I mean, I tag it as PM on my site, and so. But I think you're right that I think it's like one that they kind of more distributed. But I mean, that one definitely, you wouldn't know that one was PM. I don't know if there's any car flips in it. Maybe there are. Maybe there's like a neutron dance kind of.
I don't know that there's like car flips in Bikini Summer either. I don't remember.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. That's a good point. Yeah, I don't think so.
Listen, when they went for the sex comedy dollar, they didn't feel like they needed to flip a car. They felt like they needed to get, a bang for your buck, if you know what I mean.
Exactly. Yes.
And I think you do.
When they went to kids' movies, they decided they still needed to flip cars. That's what's interesting.
You're like, that's what's interesting. Do you know what's interesting? Is that when they went to kids' movies, they still needed to flip cars. I think you're right. All right. Okay, so this one stars Jeff Speakman and his Kenpo karate, which he wears proudly on a shirt during the opening sequences. This one does. What's interesting about this one is that they leave a lot of the action to the end. The third act is jam-packed, wall-to-wall action. The middle act, not so much. And the first act, a smattering, right? A smattering. It's not normally in a PM film, you would have an opening action sequence that was all 3 action sequences. It would have like a shootout, a foot chase, and a car chase. In this one, you get all 3 because you get a ridiculous car chase, you get a ridiculous foot chase, and you get a high fall off a building. But they're all sort of distributed out. They're all sort of 2-minute bursts rather than one big, complete, glorious, 10-minute thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I always feel bad for the poor family that was going on vacation in the wood panel station wagon with their bags on the top. That when Speakman gets to the potential assassin and suddenly that car flips. So it's like, I hope that they got their deposit back on their lodge out in Big Bear, but I don't know. Yeah.
So Jeff Speakman plays William Shatner's campaign manager. And William Shatner, he's not running for president, right? He's running for the Senate?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So which makes it even more hilarious, because if he was like running for president, you'd go, oh, all of this big scheme and scam that he's going on in the background would make sense. Him running for the Senate, I mean, essentially, not that they're not important, but essentially like the middle managers of the government, You know what I mean? The directors and middle management of the government. To have him sort of be the mastermind of, some American New World Order. And, I'm going to remind everyone as we talk about this, that this movie's from 1998.
Right.
Not now, because we are talking about a political figure who is trying to, through nefarious means and terrorist funding, put together a sort of American New World Order, which is what Shatner is trying to do with the help of seemingly everybody. Because apparently Jeff, when he has to go on the run, cannot trust anybody. Every single person turns against Jeff. So, Matt, do you want to fill in the blanks? We've kind of given people the opening and who Shatner is, but do you want to fill in the blanks? So give us a plot overhaul.
Yeah, so like you said, Speakman is campaign manager for this charismatic politician, William Shatner. He has a friend, an old Navy buddy, who says, "Hey, this Shatner guy might be connected with this militia." So, a trip into a computer, to the computer office, easily found password, and a 3.5 floppy disk later, he's got some evidence that he brings to the FBI, and they're saying, "Okay, we got the evidence. Now we need you to testify." It's like, well, if I testify, he's going to kill me, right? He's going to have his people kill me or whatever. So they do testify, but then he's got to go on the run. And while he's on the run, like you said, William Shatner's militia, they have people everywhere. So now Speakman and his wife and son, they've got to stay alive long enough.
And everywhere they have people, those people suspiciously look like Cole S. McKay.
They do. Yes.
He's in like 8 of the like attempts on his life kind of thing. And it's funny. Anyway, keep going, Matt. Sorry.
Exactly. No, he is. It's great. Yeah. But yeah, so then he's got to stay alive long enough. But unfortunately, when it gets to the end of the movie, the tentacles that Shatner has go all the way even to the judiciary. And the judge acquits him. So now, Speakman's going to take the law into his own hands.
The hair on that judge. The hair on that judge. It's truly a gift to mankind, an absolute gift to mankind. Yeah. The hair on this judge. Matt, talk to us about the hair.
Oh, it is. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. I mean, I don't even know. I mean, I was trying to think Sandra Day O'Connor maybe is the best that comes to mind for that hair. It's like kind of like this long, almost like he's playing like a friar in an English like period piece, right? From like a medieval, like maybe like a 10-part BBC, mini series, and he's, doing the Canterbury Tales or something like that. But then he's dressed as a judge, and he's like handing down justice, or not justice. It's a beautiful. When they looked at him, they were just like, "You're the judge." I mean,
yeah. By the way, do you know who that is? Do you know who the judge is?
No, I didn't.
The judge is director, producer, and actor Arthur Hiller, who people will know, our generation will know for See No Evil, Hear No Evil.
Right.
Possibly, if you're slightly older than us, you might know for Love Story and The In-Laws from the 70s. And he also directed Sir Jimus Belushi in Taking Care of Business.
Yeah.
So can you imagine this hair hanging out with Belushi? Belushi, right? Prime 80s mullet, late 80s, early 90s mullet Belushi, hanging out with Arthur Hiller's lion mane of a godly man head do.
And I just realized I reviewed an Arthur Hiller movie. He directed a movie called Pucked, National Lampoon's Pucked, with John Bon Jovi. I reviewed that for the site, so got to review those hockey movies. So wow, I didn't even think to look him up. Of all the people, because we've also got Bernie Koppel, the doctor from Love Boat, is in this movie, which I had somehow missed that. Previous viewings. I don't know how I'd missed that before, but yeah.
What about Rance Howard as the motel manager?
Right. Yes.
Rance Howard, Ron Howard's dad is in this movie for 13 seconds.
Yes.
Not even a full half an hour.
Right. He's there long enough for the corrupt FBI guy who's in on the with the militia to steal gum from him and say, charge it to the militia account.
Oh, here's a question. Do you think all these wonderful gentlemen who have cameos are friends of Shatner? So I wonder if some of these guys, Arthur Hiller, Rance Howard, Bernie Koppel, these feel like people Shatner might pal around with. You can imagine them drinking Tom Collins's discussing the horse race.
I didn't think it was because Bernie Koppel's almost the same age. He was born in 33 and Shatner's 31 or something like that, or 30, 31. So they're like the same age. Rance Howard, that's a good point. He's also right around the same age, a couple of years older. They all probably were like palling around in the 60s and in Hollywood together. It's like,
drinking Tom Collins's by the pool.
Right. Yeah. And then, Pep and Murray come to Shatner and say, hey, do you want to make a movie? He's like, yeah, only if my buddies who I'm sitting at the pool with drinking Tom Collins with can be in the movie with me.
You got to give them all $100.
Right, exactly.
And use of your limousine on weekends.
Right.
Okay, so Shatner. I wonder if that was Shatner's real bathrobe that he wears in that scene.
It could be.
He would never come on this podcast, William Shatner, but boy, I wish he would, because I have questions about that bathrobe, Matt.
Yes.
He probably said to Pepin and May, he probably said, listen, the ladies demand a bathrobe scene from me. So even though it makes very little sense, have me please momentarily in a bathrobe. Listen, it'll bring you at least another 20 female renters of this cassette tape.
Yes, exactly. Well, and I mean that end scene where Jeff Speakman is putting bombs around his house. It's like he's like doing an Easter egg hunt thing where he's just like opening up cabinets and putting them in there and stuff like that. It's like, and then he's got, Shatner's got Mac from Night Court as his head of security, which is just an absolute trip.
Mac from Night Court. He's got to be another Shatner guy. They're probably hanging out in the NBC canteen, drinking Tom Collins's. And what is Tom Collins? I don't know. Anyway.
That's a good question. It sounds like exactly the drink that they'd be having there, but yeah.
So Tom Collins is a straightforward and refreshing cocktail that combines gin with lemon juice, sugar, and club soda.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's sort of like a gin simple syrup or something kind of thing.
Yeah, almost like a TNT, but with lemon juice, I guess, instead of lime.
But when you see this drink, that is exactly what Shatner and Arthur Hiller and who else we got and Rance Howard and Bernie Koppel are all sitting around a pool in bathrobes.
Yes.
And by the way, as it goes round the circle, the bathrobes get just ever so slightly shorter. So that by the time it gets to Shatner, he's got like a Roman bathrobe on that's barely even covering his upper thigh.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And they've all got Tom Collins's. True. I know this is fact. I know this is what's happening.
It's the best explanation, right, for what happens in this, for how these people are in this movie. Because I mean, it's one of the things about these PM flicks. Like, the last time I was on, we were talking about A Dangerous Place, and we've got like, Dick Van Patten, or Mickey Rooney in Maximum Force. It's just like out of nowhere, these people. I think Frank Gorshin was in one. It's like these guys just show up in these movies, and again,
and why not, man? There is Pepin and Mehi saying these guys are not too old to work. We're putting them
Right.
in movies. We're giving them great characters. We're giving them random cameos. Full steam ahead, because, in some territories, being able to put, Rance Howard and Arthur Hiller on the front of your videotape, that has cachet. They may be very small areas where that is cachet, but listen, every demographic and every market counts to the PM Entertainment boys. So even though it's a small demographic, Matt, it's a loyal one. It's a loyal one.
It is. Well, I wonder too, like a Bernie Koppel, for example. I mean, the size of that guy's Rolodex with all of the people that came in and out of Love Boat. Like, you've got to think, if you're Pepin and Murphy, it's like, hey, Bernie, so-and-so was on an episode. Do you still have? Oh, yeah, I talk to him from time to time. Sure, I'll give him a call.
Wait, was Arthur Hiller on a Love Boat episode? Let's go digging.
Oh, that's a good question. Part of it is too, I think, like you said, like giving them work. It probably keeps their CV. They can keep saying, they can keep adding things to their CV, like you said, when they're older and they're having trouble maybe finding things. These are short roles that other than Shatner's, like none of these roles really take a lot out of them. They're each in it for one scene. I think Arthur Hiller gets 2 scenes as the judge, but otherwise everybody else is in the movie for one scene. They get a paycheck. Shatner gets to pal around with them for a little bit and hang out. And, plus they're in LA, all the shooting's being done in LA. So it's like, they just, hop in their Cadillac and just go down the street for a little bit and shoot and get home for the day.
I happen to know that Rance Howard only drives Pontiacs. So I happen to know that for a fact.
Traffic excitement.
Yeah. Yeah. He only rides Chevrolets. So it's the only, just rides Chevys. Lincolns. No, Rance Howard's a Lincoln man, I think.
He's a Lincoln guy, yeah.
He's a Lincoln guy. I'd get there in the end.
Yeah.
I think Bernie Koppel then is probably a Pontiac guy.
Yes.
He strikes me as a bit of a polyester suit, a wide collar, you know what I mean? He's getting out of that Pontiac feeling like a king.
Yes, I feel like that because he would have been like in his late 60s in this. I think he still was doing a 2-seater at that time. I think,
yeah. And every time he gets out of the car, out of nowhere, a funk band starts playing, and some guy walks past him and goes, "Oh yeah!"
Right. As the doctor, I was recently recorded an episode of the podcast on Space Mutiny, which has Brett Brown's wife, Sissy Cameron. She did a Love Boat episode. I think she was like, her character was hooking up with Bernie Koppel. The doctor on the Love Boat, he definitely did okay for himself.
And he had permission because he was a doctor.
Right,
you know what I mean? If a doctor gets handsy, he's just doing his job.
He's just doing
his job. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Oh my, doctor, what are you doing? My job, lady. Now pour me another Tom Collins and cough.
Right. Ted, the Ted Lang as Isaac, your bartender, comes up with the Tom Collins. That's right. Kind of just presents the tray. Here you are, doctor.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. So yeah, if we go back towards the beginning, then. So what do we think? So in the opening, politician, senatorial candidate, there was an assassination attempt on Shatner's life by an incredibly obvious assassin right in the crowd, with not even hiding it. He's not even wearing a red ninja outfit, Matt.
Right.
To blend seamlessly in with the background of American flags and what's his slogan? It's not Make America
free
Great
for everyone or something. Freedom for
everyone, something like that. Yeah, he's got one of those slogans, and so a lot of red signs. So if you were in the red ninja outfit, you know what I mean. You could have got away with it in the blink of an eye. You know what I mean? If you were quick, and maybe had a blow dart rather than a big cumbersome gun.
Yeah, like the guy made Travis Bickle look inconspicuous.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true. He did make Travis Bickle look inconspicuous. And Speakman, as his campaign manager, not even his head of security, as his campaign manager, gives chase. And that is because his head of security, very old man, and running is a little tough for him. He's the sort of Danny Glover role. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Whereas Speakman is the Mel Gibson. Speakman's all doing this business with the running down the street Tom Cruise style, Tom Cruise borrowed it from Mel Gibson, by the way. He was the first one to run with a particular round, and a bit of the old Terminator 2, Robert Patrick, Mel Gibson put them together, Tom Cruise. But in running, only in running, just in the running lineage, not in any other thing. But Speakman just takes off in his 90s off the peg JC Penney suit. He just goes shiny. You can always tell an off the peg JC Penney suit because it's shiny.
Yes.
And I don't say that in a judgmental terms. I in my life have owned many off the peg JC Penney suits. So
they work
it's not
in a
judgment.
Pinch. They work in a pinch. They're beautiful. Yeah.
Especially when they're olive green, shiny, and Jeff Speakman is running around in them. So he pops off, and we have a foot chase. And then we have the car. Does the car wreck happen at that point as well?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, because it's because what happens is he runs up a car or something. Like somebody ends up going up a car, and it causes a car to stop short, and then it causes a wood paneled station wagon to flip over with all the bags on top. And
the family roadster or whatever it was. Exactly. No, I don't know that it wasn't a Griswold car, but it was more like a. Was it more like the Bronco shape wood paneling, like a wood paneling Bronco?
Yeah, it was like kind of the boxier, older station wagon. It was like they must have found that thing on a lot, and it didn't drive at all, and they just were able to kind of get it moving enough to flip it. And maybe I don't even know how that works. If you have to tow it or something, or like it, but because I think that's what happens with their cars, right? They just get cars from like a junk lot and just
I know. It was a golden age, Matt. A golden age.
Yeah, exactly.
Junkyards around Los Angeles were just raking in the cash.
Yeah.
From episodes of the A-Team to PM Entertainment, they had a good 20 years golden era of junk rentals for stunts. Yeah.
Well, it's like if you hear Andy Sedaris would talk about that like he would want to use like a sports car. And then I think it was his mother-in-law that did like a lot of the requisition. Like she did like the budgets and stuff. And it was like, can we find a boxy, like old junker that we could just dress up to look enough like that fancy sports car when we blow it up? And that was like always kind of his goal. So I think PM worked on the same system.
Yeah. So what you notice in this movie is that the car that Jeff Speakman is initially driving, the hood and the trunk are all scratched up, burnt out, whatever. Like it's obvious like a car that they maybe already did a stunt in and then like beat the bodywork back out. And then a couple of the cars that the cops drive have like big dents in the front of them. So I think they just got every car in this movie from a junkyard, I think.
Yeah. Well, it was 1998. So, PM had been at this for a little while at this point. So, they put a lot of these cars through the ringer. So.
Yeah. And a lot of these buses, of course, as we get later in the movie. But yeah, so it was, didn't we get though, wasn't there a couple of muscle cars in this as well?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Especially in the last scene, when he's busting out of Shatner's house. I think there's that one there. And I think, because I think when they're getting chased, I think they're all like Cadillacs and Pontiacs as well.
They go on the run from a lot of people. And everyone is against them. Everyone, Matt, nobody, not, I'm surprised he didn't like call up his sister and then go to meet his sister at a cafe. And then when he goes to meet his sister, it zooms in on her face and she looks all evil. And she's like, ha, ha, ha. And then two guys are behind him and he gives chase. Because I feel like that was probably what was going to happen.
Right, you got Gillian McWhirter playing his sister.
Yes.
She's in tons of these movies. Yeah,
love McWhirter. McWhirter's great. Yeah. Also, what about Shatner's hair in this movie?
Yes,
it does not attach to his head. I'm just saying.
It's beautiful.
It is, and it's funny because I watched these movies back to back, and they will be back to back episodes of the PM Entertainment podcast. Last Man Standing and Land of the Free have one very important thing in common. They are both PM films in which the title of the PM film is a fictional book within the movie. So at the end of Last Man Standing, Jonathan Banks' character's book that he's been writing about the police force is called Last Man Standing. The irony being, Jonathan Banks is killed in the movie before anyone else. So he's literally the first man down not The Last Man Standing.
Yes.
So calling his book Last Man Standing makes no sense, except that it's the name of the movie. In this movie, Shatner's book is called Land of the Free, which, it's like his Mein Kampf or whatever.
Well, because what's great is that, after Speakman gets the intel from his old Navy buddy, he decides he's going to break into...
By old Navy buddy, we mean a man who was in the Navy, not someone who works front of house at an old Navy.
Yes, exactly.
He's not like an old Navy greeter. He is from the Navy, and he knew him a long time ago. That's why we're his old naval friend. Yes.
That's right. He's not getting him a great deal on a pair of pants that are going to fall apart in the next month. Right, exactly.
Or last 20 years. Because that old Navy stuff either falls apart right away. Like before you get it home, you take it out of the bag at home and it's already disintegrated. Or you wear it for years and years and years and years and it never gets so much as a scratch.
Right. It's like their T-shirts last forever, but their pants, they're made of paper. It's old Navy.
Old Navy, paper pants. Just don't go out in the rain. Come again. Sunny days are paper pants are tops. Rainy days, whoops-a-daisy.
And they like to do those dance, those musical theater numbers for their commercial. That would be a really great Singing in the Rain thing where somebody's out there singing in the rain is going to know that the next shot they have no pants on.
Right. Yeah. It's like a 30 Rock sketch. Like Liz Lemon would just be like, shut it down. She would see all the pants disintegrating and just be like, shut it down. Shut it down. Exactly. What's the $1 million briefcase or whatever, or golden briefcase or whatever the game is, where Jack Donaghy thinks it would be a great idea to put Tracy Jordan thinks it would be a great idea to have one suitcase full of gold bars, and then everyone else just has empty suitcases or whatever. And Alec Baldwin is like, that's a great idea. Makes it, and on the very first episode, you can tell that the woman holding the briefcase it's shaking because the suitcase is so heavy. And the guy goes, number 8. And Alec Baldwin as Jack Donaghy just goes, shut it down now.
It's beautiful.
Well, that's what this is like.
The best I think is the sneaking into the office scene, because I think I don't know if it's this. I think the initial chase actually is where we get the first taste of the interesting music choices in this movie.
Oh my goodness, the soundtrack of this, of this movie. If there was a hell, and I'm not. If they were gonna torture me and try and get answers out of me that don't exist. They would and put me in a sound deprivation room or whatever. Or have you seen the Ipcris file with Michael Caine?
Oh yeah, a long time ago.
There's at one point at the end where they're trying to disorientate him and they starve him and then barely give him any water, and then they put him in a room and they flash bright colors in his face and try and keep him awake, and then they're playing psychedelic music when he's in the room, right? And there's all this light and sound or whatever. If they were going to torture me or disorientate me or whatever, it would be to the sounds of this soundtrack. Because 1 minute, you said it right earlier on when we were chatting. 1 minute, it sounds like a passable flute and a passable bassoon. And then the next minute, there's the cheapest Yamaha keyboard orchestra sound. And you're like, what is going on? Talk to us, Matt, about the music.
I mean, so the scene where... Speakman kind of gets a sense that maybe his buddy's right, that that Aidan Carvel, Shatner, he's connected with this militia, but he needs proof.
And so ice cream. He comes from big ice cream money.
Right, Cookie Puss. Yeah, Cookie Puss money. But he goes into his office, and the music playing is something out of I don't know, a Murder, She Wrote episode or something, but it doesn't fit what's happening, right? This is a tense scene. He's messing around with his keyboard, and Mac from Night Court is looming around the office and might catch him. Of course, there's also this thing that happens in the 90s where people's passwords are these really easy to figure out things. And
do you want to know a freaky thing? Right? So you know what his password ends up being is Triumph, right?
Yeah.
So his password is Triumph, right? After, by the way, Jeff Speakman has gone down the list. I don't know if you ever frozen the movie, paused the movie, and looked at that list of passwords. There's all sorts of mad stuff on that list of passwords that doesn't make any sense at all. But it's clearly they handed it to a PA. They were like, we did the first 20. Can you write out the rest of the passwords? And the PA was like, I don't know. I'm not creative. Desk, hats. Like, it was just... there was one, I think, it just says deceit. And I'm like, why would that be his password?
Exactly.
I'm gonna make my, and then he looks over at a trophy on the wall and remembers some quote, neither of which has anything to do with Triumph. And he goes, Triumph. Types in Triumph and it works. And what's hilarious is what's spooky, Matt, is I watched the Boogeyman over the last couple of days with my friend Jim Wallace from the After Movie Diner. And in the movie Boogeyman, which is a sort of Halloween, Amityville, Exorcist clone from the very, very early 80s, 1980, I think. An Uli Lamel film. It's fantastic. And in that movie, one of the characters that ends up getting killed walks around in a black T-shirt that just says Triumph along the front of it. And it's not even the Triumph, like the motorbike logo. It's just Triumph in just very block, like Arial block capital letters. It just says Triumph. Yeah. And this is a movie that was made 18 years before this movie. And yet I watched this movie first and then Boogeyman second. And I was blown away. I was like, what are the chances?
Triumph.
Right.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, as the soundtrack that makes no sense is happening,
So, by the way, Joe Rogan is now claiming that there's a dark web conspiracy about the word Triumph. He's like, see, John Cross points out on his podcast that he watched two completely unrelated movies that just happened to have the word Triumph feature briefly in them. Something must be going on the dark web. Joe Rogan has opinions.
Yes, exactly. And that's worth 9 figures. that is worth
and that's worth 9 figures.
Yeah.
That's brilliant, Matt. That was classic. That was absolutely fantastic. All right, sorry, the soundtrack. Go back to the music. I apologize.
No, so he almost gets caught. He sneaks out before Mac from Night Court can get in because Mac is fumbling with his keys, right? I mean, that's how great of a head of security this guy is. That he knows there's somebody
can't chase down perps.
No, and he can't even get the right keys.
Keys.
Yeah, he's like fumbling around with the keys. It's like, what are you doing? Like, this is like, it's like some drunk person getting home being like,
At what point, the key is not even in the lock at all, and he tries to turn it. I'm like, what is this? He can't run. He can't key. Dude, he's a complete mess. He can't even jump out of a helicopter.
Right. And I believe this whole scene is all happening to like the music of like I think I was saying like an 8-bit Nintendo like RPG or role-playing game, like Final Fantasy or something. It's like this doodly doodly doo.
Yeah, it sounds like a very cheap 8-bit computer game, Final Fantasy knockoff called like Knights of Ghostly Valley or something. You know what I mean? It's like, and I'm like, what is this? And by the way, it doesn't stop through the whole movie. The movie is a carpet of this music. It's one of the things. Look, I love PM Entertainment films. I love Land of the Free. Who doesn't love Jeff Speakman going up against William Shatner? Who doesn't love that? So it's absolutely phenomenal. We love Land of the Free. But I am just here to say that this soundtrack is no halfpenny brilliance from A Dangerous Place. This is some absolute garbage.
Yes, it's like the most, and like you said, it doesn't stop. Like, I mean, there's a chase sequence that's like playing to this.
No, you keep talking, dude, and I'm just going to keep going. Like,
Yeah, like there's a chase scene where there's explosions happening, and it's still that music just playing as like the cars are.
It sounds like. It sounds like, you know, when you go to a mall in the Midwest or whatever, and in the middle of the mall, there's still like an old diner. It's not like a chain. It's like a Cracker Barrel or whatever. It's like a diner that's been run by a family, and they kind of built the mall around it, right?
Yeah.
And every third Sunday of every month, you know, Aunt Beatrice and Uncle Freddie or whatever come and play a Yamaha keyboard and a flute. You know what I mean?
Right.
In the mall, in the Midwest. They're wearing matching vests that have got like floral patterns on them. You know what I mean? Freddie looks like the soul was sucked out of him 40 years ago, and he's in some kind of existential Yamaha keyboard fueled hell. That's what this soundtrack sounds like. That if that's the band, that's what this. Like Freddie's dying, like his soul has left him, and Freddie is collapsing on the Yamaha.
Which, to be fair, this is like perfect music to listen to while you're having a grilled cheese in a diner on a Sunday afternoon, right? Like it's perfect for that.
Yeah.
For car flips and Speakman beating the crap out of people and like 3.5-inch floppy disks and stuff, and you know. Right. It doesn't quite fit.
No, it doesn't fit at all. Although Speakman does get to John McClane in this movie with the longest fire hose in the existence of fire hoses. Because we've all seen Die Hard. So our movie reference for fire hose jumping off a skyscraper is that fire hoses that are on the roof of said skyscrapers maybe last about what, 4 floors, 5 floors, something like that, right? Like when he jumps off the top of the building with it wrapped around his waist and the roof explodes, he goes down what, 4, 5 floors? Not a lot, right? He's still in the like 20s or whatever, right? Speakman's fire hose takes him, 3 floors above a big dumpster full of garbage bags. So it takes him like 22 floors, this fire hose, longest fire hose in the history of movies.
And again, it's all set up right because, when he goes to the FBI, somebody in the FBI is on the inside. They rat him out. So he's at the office, and Shatner and Mac from Night Court confront him, and he runs off, right? And he runs to the roof, and people are chasing whatever. And he's like, "How am I going to get out of this?" And I'll do the fire hose thing. All of this is all happening to that same soundtrack. I mean, like as he's like lowering himself, and the other thing too is this is one of the few PM films that uses green screen. They use some green screen of him falling while he's in the hose, which I think that might be an Arthur Hiller thing because you never see that in PM stuff. But it's like this whimsical like music but it's not like whimsical. It's like it's like the opening scene. I think I was saying it's like the opening scene in an erotic thriller where they're like establishing the nice suburban setting. And then meanwhile, behind closed doors, Shannon Worry is like putting some stocking tops on and, lipstick or something, you know what I mean? And it's like, there's you can just see like
Starry Shatner is plumping up her lip gloss.
Exactly. Well, the paper boy's throwing the paper outside and like, old guy's watering his lawn. And that's the music that Speakman is lowering himself and like jumping into this track and escaping. That's the music that's playing.
So the composer for this movie, Stephen Cohn, who only ever composed for this one PM film, would, however, or had rather in the past before this PM Entertainment film, done the music for none other than the film from 1992, Nickel and Dime, a comedic buddy cop duo of C. Thomas Howell and Wallace Shawn. Why have we not watched Nickel and Dime, Matt? Why are we not watching Nickel and Dime right now?
I don't know.
C. Thomas Howell and Wallace Shawn in a 1992 detective comedy. Come on now. Who doesn't want that? The only reason I wouldn't want to watch that is because it's got the Stephen Cohen doing the fucking soundtrack.
If it's like this soundtrack, because I would feel like Nickel and Dime would be the perfect double feature with My Dinner with Andre. It's your Wallace Shawn double feature.
Yes. And what are we watching tonight? Well, it's a wonderful double bill of two classic Wallace Shawn performances. Nice. What are we doing? Princess Bride in there? Nope, not Princess Bride. Okay, well, maybe more of a recent one. The Tina Fey film that I've forgotten the name of that has Paul Rudd in it. But, Wallace Shawn's in that. Nope, it's not that one, Oh, okay, which is it? Well, you are in for a treat tonight. It is 1992's C. Thomas Howell co-starring film Nickel and Dime. And then there's just like a whistle goes throughout the auditorium.
Right.
And to speak about the film, we have composer Stephen Cohen. And they just put a little spotlight. Like, it's not even a spotlight. It's someone in the front row just has an angle poised lamp.
Right.
And they just move it up. And we illuminate Stephen Cohen on a little Yamaha keyboard.
I was going to say,
and he just goes, yeah. So what we're going to do is, as we watch Nickel and Dime, Stephen Cohen's going to live perform the soundtrack. Come on, you'd go to that screening. You would go to that.
Of course I would. Of course. Oh, of course I would. Yes. Yeah. I mean, now I'm like, I got to do that Wallace Shawn double feature because I think My Dinner with Andre is on Max. I've got to I got
to find Nickel and Dime on Tubi. It's on Tubi. Nickel and Dime is on Tubi, Matt. Let's do it.
There we go.
Let's do it. Let's watch it and do it for the after movie diner.
Anyway, that would be perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, who does or your show because it's straight to video. So I mean, we could do it on your show.
Yeah, either one would work. Yeah,
yeah. It looks fantastic. It's another wonderful C. Thomas Howell haircut as well. It's a real high top C. Thomas Howell 90s yuppie haircut. Wow, this has got to be a gem. This has got to be a gem. I refuse to believe this is anything other than a lost classic.
Yeah. Oh, of course, it's got to. I think you're right. Like, there's no way that movie doesn't have any kind of redeemable value. I mean, you're like you said, that the soundtrack's the only thing that could hurt it.
The soundtrack could decimate it.
Yes. So one of the things about this is that they say we find out that Speakman, I guess, like went into like him and his kids went into like protection.
And the protection is what's odd is there are two FBI guys who we know have the Ginger and Taller Ginge, double Ginge. Right, they're both like strawberry blonde ginge, right? Weirdos, right.
One of them did commercials around that time.
Okay, and one of them looked like a corpse that might fall out of Lurch's closet in the Addams Family.
I think that's a commercial guy.
Yeah. Anyway, wouldn't the FBI have set up the witness protection for them? I understand it's not the same agency, but wouldn't those two FBI guys go, "Oh, we've got a witness protection guy we always use." You know what I mean?
Right.
He's like, "Oh, we recommend him to our friends and family. He's great." This guy, witness protection, he's got it locked, right?
Yeah.
But no, they just hand him over to a bunch of people who are also on Shatner's payroll.
Right. And the only way we know that this is not LA, because they're shooting this whole thing in LA. They're going to a beach in LA. It's supposed to be the only reason why we find out that it's actually further north is when Speakman is escaping these people when he finds out, because he and his wife and son are playing football, which is really great. They're playing keep away with the football from the mom, which is just sounds like a really fun thing. But but then Speakman notices, Coles McKay and a couple other ones spying on him. So he's like, okay, we got to get out of here. So when they're escaping, one of the guys says, "Oh, they're going on the 128, or they're going on 128, or something like that." And I was like, "What's 128 in California?" I was curious. So I looked it up. I was like thinking it must be in the LA area. But I looked at Wikipedia, fortunately had it. It's up in like Sonoma County,
right.
In Napa County. So that's their way. That's the PM way of telling us that they're in Northern California.
Right, but
this
when you
obscure
go to the witness,
California route.
Right, but when you go to the witness protection program, aren't you meant to become like a Walmart greeter in Idaho or something? Like you can't.
Right, exactly.
You're not meant to just move slightly up a highway.
Well, that tells you what people in LA think of that part of California.
Right.
That could have been an inside joke, actually. I didn't even think of that. Right.
Yeah.
That's like, right.
No, they do a good job of making the like motel area that they hang out in look different Well, at one point they have a house.
Right,
They have an
that's
actual house, and it looks over that Northern California coastline.
Right.
And so that felt accurate. That felt, similar, having been there. And then that gets attacked by Cole S. McKay. So they go to a hotel, which then gets attacked by Cole S. McKay. Yeah. And I would have also, Speakman makes one fatal error. One fatal error is for 3 days in a row, he wears exactly the same shirt. If you've seen him when he's running away, and then you see him walk, you see this, and it's not like a bland shirt. It's not just like a plain shirt. It's like a green thing with diamonds on it or whatever. He's got like a sweat mark at one point and across his lower abdomen. And he's walking around in this shirt. By the third day, and you see him putting it back on in the closet before he has to run out of the hotel room, you're like, really? This again? Like, I understand that PM Entertainment wanted to film sequences out of order and be able to just slot them into whatever, but that shirt, huh? Couldn't have just made it like a series of white shirts or something like that. I don't know.
Exactly. Right, that's what would happen. You think of Blood Fist movies, right? That's kind of what happens with the Blood Fist movies. Is that like when Don the Dragon Wilson's character is on the run, it's usually like some kind of gray T-shirt that he just wears,
all
with
denim,
like a coat or something.
There's a lot of denims as well, denim on denim. Yeah,
that's right.
In the Blood Fist franchise. This gentleman who did the soundtrack, Stephen Cohen, has also worked, I believe, with Roger Corman on quite a few things, and Charles Band. He does the music for Zone Troopers, and I quite like Zone Troopers.
I do too.
He also does the composer for Angel Fist, the all-female Roger Corman martial arts film.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't you notice, like, because, we're talking about this point here where Speakman and them, like, there's a point where Speakman is in his Cadillac or whatever, his Pontiac, and he's got to, escape these guys. And he does this, really great, e-brake 180 turn so that he kind of spins his car around and then they go past and he ends up chasing them.
Yeah.
And this whole thing is set to the same soundtrack, the same, whimsical, right. And it's like, you can't do anything different. And so it's like, I feel like if I was watching Zone Troopers, I would have picked up on that music. I don't know what happened here. Like, did he not make this music for this movie? And they were just like, hey, do you have any music for us? Here's some tapes here. Just take whatever you want. And Arthur Hiller was like, that's the tape I want. Like, that's what really? That's the tape we're going with? Yes, that's the one.
Wait, did Arthur Hiller ghost direct this film? Or were we just saying because he's in it? He was
telling. I keep forgetting he didn't.
He didn't direct it. No, Jerry Jameson directed it.
Right, exactly.
Jerry Jameson.
I keep forgetting that.
Who made Airport 77 and Raise the Titanic. And directed, it was in the editorial department of the TV series Mod Squad between 1968 and 1970.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, it's such a, I don't know. It just is so fascinating.
And wait, what are the editors different as well? So the cinematographer, Ken Blakey, that's correct.
Yeah.
By that's correct, I mean, yes, it should be him. And stunt Cole S. McKay, and
it's interesting. On IMDb, he's only listed as a stunt worker.
Yeah,
but in the credits, he's a stunt coordinator.
Right. Yeah. So someone needs to sort that out. But the editor, I've got a feeling it's not Paul Volk's crew for editing.
Well, Paul Volk did do the post-production because he's in the credits in that as well. And you scroll, I don't think he's on the IMDb credits, but he was on the crawl.
Yeah, but this was directed by Stephen. This was edited by Stephen Adrianson.
Yeah, so he was just so who knows what Paul Volk his part was, but it just said post-production, but he might have listened to it and just been like, we got to get it out there.
And what's weird is that this editor does edit other PM films. Yeah. They are the editor on The Underground, 8 episodes of the LA Heat TV series, The Sender, Undercover Angel, Avalanche, Fire Trap. He also then continued to work with Joseph Murray, at least, as part of his Rodney Dangerfield series of movies that May worked on, and edits Back by Midnight, a hilarious prison comedy directed and written by Harry Basil. And I believe Joseph Murray produced that. And this editor went on to do that. The interesting thing about that is the composer of that said movie with Rodney Dangerfield, Back by Midnight, is Christopher Lennertz. And I have interviewed Christopher Lennertz.
Nice.
It all connects, my friend. It all connects.
It does. It connects. Yes. Yeah.
And talking about interviews, it is now sincerely one of the pleasures of my life that I get to say the following words. Coming up in a minute, here on the PM Entertainment Podcast, is an exclusive Jeff Speakman interview. Wow, I have been a fan of the guy for so long now, and like many an action fan, I've always cherished the films we got, but always secretly hoped for a lot more movies, as his chosen martial art, Kenpo, is cinematic fireworks, and has always deserved a lot better than it may have got. Anyway, we talk about his start in movies, his Kenpo, and Land of the Free in a clip coming up soon. It was such a pleasure to speak to Jeff Speakman and present this interview for you, so I really hope everybody likes this, enjoys this, shares this, tells their friends all about it, tells anyone who even has a passing interest in action films about this show, and of course, likes, comments, rates, reviews, all of that good stuff. Please, please, please keep up the interaction with our Facebook and Instagram pages, and obviously the rating and reviewing on all podcast platforms. It really, really does help the show, so please keep it up. And as you know from the beginning of the show, you can always email us at pmentpod@gmail.com. That's pmentpod@gmail.com. All right, coming up, as always, there's a few adverts or commercials, call them what you will, because we need to pay for the hosting of this show and various other little things that cost for us to do this. And then we will have our interview with Jeff Speakman. So again, thanks ever so much for listening. Hope you're enjoying the show. Don't forget to share it amongst everyone you know, and enjoy this interview with Mr. Jeff Speakman. So doing a little bit of reading today, and from your website, it seems like you started your martial arts journey in the late 70s, early 80s, earning a black belt in Japanese Goju Ryu Karate in 1980. Your master at the time, Lou Angel, suggested that after college you go study with Ed Parker in Los Angeles. So is it fair to say that martial arts brought you to Los Angeles and you sort of decided to start your acting training and auditions once you were there? Or was the intention always to go to LA to kind of break into the film biz, and it was a happy accident that Mr. Parker was also there?
No, your first rendition is correct. And the way you read that off the Lou Angel suggestion is also completely correct. In fact, he wrote a letter of introduction for me to Mr. Parker. So when I went to LA in the summer of 1983, I went to ironically, it was 2 weeks later, was the very famous Long Beach tournament, the International Karate Championships, the IKC, which was Ed Parker's tournament. It was the biggest in the world. So I thought, how great. Just 2 weeks later, I drove down to Long Beach and looked around, and of course, wowed by a couple of thousand competitors. It was huge. Found Ed Parker, bowed to him, handed him this letter of recommendation from Lou Angel, and he was so happy to hear from his old friend. He gave me his home phone number and said, give me a couple of weeks to get done with this and call me and I'll get you started. So that's how that went. And I moved to LA to study Kenpo and then got into acting later, but did that because of Kenpo.
And so obviously in those mid to late 80s years, more and more martial artists were obviously moving into the film industry. And while obviously the 70s had been a highlight of Asian and Hong Kong action films, America really came into its own in the 80s. Was that kind of what inspired you with your Kenpo training, then with your Gaiju training, was that where you wanted to then sort of bring that to the big screen? Was that the idea, or did you just think, well, I'm in Los Angeles, let's get some acting under my belt as well?
No, it was more like the first. The actual thing that happened was there was a parent bringing her child in for Kenpo instruction, which I was teaching the class,
Yeah.
and then she would watch every day, every week, and finally came up to me, and she worked in the movie business, but as a publicist.
Right.
And she came up and said, you know, you ought to take this Kenpo stuff you do and go study acting and try to take it in the movies, because I've never seen anything like this. And I was resistant at first because I'm from the Midwest, didn't have any experience, never even went to a high school play or anything. And so it was not on my radar. I just came there to study Kenpo and, you know, explore what LA had to offer. So she kept coming back, and finally one day she walked in and she said, look, here's a reputable acting class. I've already called them. They're friends of mine. They're inviting you in to come and just watch. So do me a favor and just go watch. And it was a little bit, it was like a 45-minute drive into Burbank. But I said, okay, you know, I'll go see. Now, I took a degree in the behavioral sciences, my undergraduate degree. So when I went there and watched my first acting class ever, that's what struck me as really interesting, is it seemed like a way that you could learn more about yourself through experiencing training as an actor.
Yeah.
So I was intrigued by it. I started that, and ironically, right about that same time, Van Damme's first movie came out called Bloodsport.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, since I'm thinking of doing this, I'm going to go all by myself on a weekend in the afternoon and sit and watch this new guy's movie, and then I'll see what I think. And after I watched that movie, the only thing I thought was, man, if that made it on the big screen, wait till they see Kenpo.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think people felt that as well when they saw The Perfect Weapon for the first time, you know, having already seen, as you say, sort of Van Damme stuff and a couple of other martial arts films. Once they saw Kenpo, I certainly, like, when I first saw that movie, it blew me to the back of my seat. I'm like, okay, oh my goodness, because because your technique, it has a lot of strength, a lot of speed, a lot of power, and obviously sort of such great technique to it, such great movement to it, and great flow to it.
Yeah.
So it's different from just, you know, and no disrespect to anyone else, but different from just sort of roundhouse kicks or, you know, punches or things that you had seen maybe Norris or Van Damme or other people do who are highly skilled, highly trained. But, you know, Kenpo seems to take that to a whole new level.
Yes, and I agree. And I'm so happy to hear that you perceive that, because that was the intention all along. I never wanted to be just another one of the guys.
Right.
I wanted to stand out. So I selected to study acting for 5 years before I went out and let anyone know that I also knew a martial art called Kenpo.
Yeah.
Because if I was going to get my chance, I wanted to be able to prove that also I could act. And the way you do that is you go out on auditions with everybody else, and you earn that position, you get hired, you go to work, you get your paycheck, and the check cashes at the bank.
Right.
Once you've done that, now you're, in quotes, a working actor. Because, you know, the joke in LA is you go to somebody and say, oh, what do you do? Oh, and they say, I'm an actor. And you go, oh, great, what restaurant do you work at?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
yes.
You know, until you actually do it and walk the walk, and it took me 5 years, you really are just a wannabe until you actually get hired based on your acting talent. Then, ironically, one of the teachers in the acting workshop I went to, he wrote Van Damme's second movie, Kickboxer.
Right.
And so I thought, wow, how crazy is this? So we started talking, and he was interested. So he came down to the dojo, and I made a demonstration for him. And that's when he said, okay, that's it. So we went back and called Mark DeSalle, who produced and directed Van Damme's movies, who he just finished doing the third movie with Van Damme called Death Warrant. and now was looking for another guy. And so he then came to the West LA dojo at night after we were closed, and I had a couple of black belts with me, and we put on a demo, and right there he said, okay, I want to sign you for 4 movies.
Which is fantastic. Obviously a great success on your part. And I think that when I watch your films in particular, what does strike me is that you did the acting work first. No, again,
Right.
no disrespect to anyone else. There are a lot of great martial artists in movies. There aren't a lot of great martial artist actors in movies. They learn. You see
Right.
martial artists who start in the 80s who by the time they get 10 movies deep are much better actors, and they've obviously learned on the job. But initially that's not what's bringing you to the film. With you, on the other hand, I feel like you balanced both really, really well, honestly. And I'm not just blowing smoke or being complimentary. I genuinely have said that to other people before I ever got a chance to talk to you. So it definitely shows up on screen, I believe.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that, because as you can imagine, I sacrificed a lot to achieve that.
Yeah.
And it turned out to pay off, because after I signed my deal with DeSalle, then he took it to Paramount and said, I've got the next guy. Well, the president of Paramount, Gary, at that time was Gary Lucchese. He came down to the West LA dojo after we closed, brought a couple of other executives with him, and Mark DeSalle, of course. And we did another demo for him. And after that, that was it. They took all of the DeSalle movie and options. They were then assigned to Paramount, and then we began writing the first of 4, which should have been 4 movies, turned out not to be the case. But the first movie, which, as you have pointed out, was called The Perfect Weapon.
Yeah. And so you were involved from the very beginning in developing that script, developing the idea, and obviously
Yes.
probably pointing out where your Kenpo work would fit best within the structure of the film.
Yes.
Obviously, Ed Parker was your mentor at the time. Was Mr. Parker also involved? Was he interested in bringing, obviously, his Kenpo to the screen as well? Or was this something you kind of did independently on your own and with obviously, the support of the studio?
No, he was there with me every step of the way. We became very, very close, as you can imagine.
Yes.
You know, finally doing a Kenpo movie the way he always wanted it done. And here's something really interesting and powerful. And that was Paramount. Remember, I had done nothing before that. Paramount was so impressed with what they saw, they gave me the full choreography of all the fight scenes. So the way that worked is they wrote the script, and we knew there was going to be a fight scene in an apartment, in a Taekwondo gym, in a back alley. I went to those physical locations with Mr. Parker. We looked at them, saw what the environment was like, and then we created fight scenes that worked in that environment. And then we filmed those, and then when the movie was over, here's the next. This is really even more bizarre. The movie is over, and of course I go to watch it at Paramount, the first showing of it, with just a handful of us in one of their theaters. And I started saying, wait a second, that doesn't go there. That should be here. And where's this? I know we shot that from this angle, and it would be better. And so Gary Lucchese came to me and said, so if you re-edit those fight scenes, do you think you could do a better job than what we have done? I said, I'm, with all due respect, I'm sure I can, because I'm really the only one that knows how it's supposed to look.
Right.
And then they said, okay, we'll give you your time in the editing room, and let's see what you can do. Remember, I had never been in an editing room before I walked into Paramount Studios, and I have carte blanche. So we went step by step, and the end result was that each fight scene was elongated significantly because I kept putting things back in it that they took out because they didn't know where it would go.
Right.
So they just left it lying on the desk. Now, that's important to a company like Paramount because the most expensive thing you're going to shoot are going to be action scenes, fight scenes, car chases, all that.
Yeah.
So in terms of dollars on the screen, that's the place that's by far the most expensive. So what I was able to do was take exactly what they had, expand it so it had more screen time, which made them happier because they got more of a return on their investment. And I got the art the way I wanted it to be, guided by Mr. Parker, so it was a win-win.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. And obviously on set with those fight scenes, but also the stunts, the general stunts in the film, you were working with Rick Avery, who you would go on to work with
Right.
In many more films. Were they familiar at that time at all with the sort of Kenpo techniques? And how did you combine sort of your ideas with maybe their ideas or their expertise in other areas of stunt work and fighting?
Yes, great question. It was really easy because, believe it or not, Rick Avery was a 5th-degree black belt in Kenpo karate. And he had a personal relationship with Mr. Parker, which is how I met him. So then when Rick came in and became part of the team, we had to shoot all of the fight scenes in reverse. Here's what I mean. Okay. Normally, there would be a strike or a punch or a kick toward the stuntman. They would act fake like they got hit and react to the hit and then turn them back and look at you, and you would do the next hit and turn back and the next hit. That's how that all works. The problem is I'm moving way too fast for that. So what we did was way in advance, we had workouts at the dojo with all teams of stuntmen under Rick Avery. So each stuntman was assigned to each scene, but each fight sequence with me, we would rehearse. And so they would understand what their body reaction was. And then they had to fit my hand speed instead of me waiting for them to react. And that's the thing that you experience when you look at that and go, I've never seen this before. Kenpo's totally unique. When, you know, all those feelings you had. Yeah. That was because I was doing stuff real speed, and the stuntman had to match my hands as opposed to the reverse, which is where I have to match the stuntman.
Right. Okay, I see. So yeah, that's a unique way of filming. And was it something? Yes, was that something you then brought to further roles? Were you able to say, look, we had the best success in Perfect Weapon with this technique? And then you were almost training stunt teams as you were coming into new movies to kind of go, hey, look, this is the way it works better. Is that how that
That's
works?
Right. Yeah. Okay. You've got it exactly right. A little caveat here was, the truth was I never had to go in and say, look, here's how I did this. Here's how it worked. Let me do the same thing here. They came to me.
Right.
And they said, whatever you did to make that work, can you do it again? And I said, yes, as long as you give me what I need, which is time in a gym, working with the stuntmen that are going to be on the set, so we can rehearse, because as you know, and probably everybody can understand, when you're on the movie set, the money is flying out the door.
Yeah.
So you have got to be prepared. You can't be on the movie set choreographing a fight scene. You've got to have the fight scene choreographed already. And then we went one step further, which was we trained the stuntmen how to react in advance. So when it came time for us to shoot whatever fight scene, we were rehearsed, we were ready, we blocked it out for the cameras, and then we shot it and we were done.
Yeah, easy to move on then, and you're not wasting the money on the set. You're not wasting the crew's time. They can just set up. Yeah, they know where everything needs to be.
Exactly. And of course, you just said the magic phrase, you're saving time, which means you're saving money, which makes you a hero.
Exactly. And the more, you know, it's like anything, and it's an old phrase, people have used it before, but, you know, fight choreography in movies, even with real martial artists, is still like, you know, filming a dance sequence or a, you know, some form of choreography in some way. And, you know, no one comes on set and says, oh, let's do a tango. You know what I mean? Because you're like, well, what do you mean? Are you leading? Am I leading? You know, what's the music's playing under the scene, et cetera, right? So it's the same, hopefully with martial arts. But obviously as there became such a rush, because two things were happening at the time culturally. There was all these movies coming out, and then there was obviously video stores popping up everywhere, and the demand for these things became greater and greater. But that obviously meant that the time allotted for making these things became less and less, which I'm sure is something you experienced once we get on to the PM films to some extent, because I know how kind of fast and loose they shot those. But you indicated earlier that obviously the contract that you initially had with Paramount didn't pan out. Did you not do Street Night with them? Was Street Night with a different company then?
Yeah, Street Night was with Warner Brothers.
Okay.
Although Paramount had me on contract, locked up for The Perfect Weapon and 3 options after that.
Okay.
The thing that kept us from doing another Paramount movie was they had such a terrible experience with Mark DeSalle that they didn't want to work with him again, and I was tied to him on those remaining 3 options.
Oh, I see.
So,
okay.
So they had me on what's called a holding deal, which means they're going to pay you X amount of dollars for you not to go anywhere else.
Right.
And so all they did was pay me the money for the holding deal, never pulled the trigger on doing the next movie, which then kicked me out of the Paramount loop, but I was still tied to DeSalle. So that's why we went to Warner Brothers next, and on after, and then to Canon after that, because I had no right whatsoever to determine the budget, the content of the movie, nothing, because of course I signed the deal with DeSalle before Paramount. So it was whatever DeSalle wanted to do, whatever movie he wanted to do, wherever he wanted to do it. And I was obligated to do that. And if I didn't, for good reasons or bad, he would have sued me for sure, and I would have been in a whole lot of trouble.
Okay. I understand. So was there anything in Street Night then, and I don't know how far you had got on working just on ideas and things from those Paramount films, and I know that Perfect Weapon 2 had been mooted at some point. Was there anything from those ideas that wound up in Street Night, or was Street Night a movie that kind of came to you already prepped?
Street Night was a movie that came to the mindset of Mark DeSalle. So he had this vision, and he pitched it to me. He said, "This is what our next movie will be," and he got the funding for it. And then they hired a writer, and they went about writing it. I was involved all the way, and I thought it was really a good idea, really a good script. They hired an amazing director by the name of Albert Magnoli, and you might recognize the name because he directed Prince and Purple Rain, his biggest movie by far. And this guy was an incredibly talented director. And we became good friends, and the problem still with Street Night was there was a time-sensitive issue where if DeSalle didn't do his next Speakman movie very, very soon, then he was going to lose Speakman from his contract, because everything's got a time limitation to it.
Right.
So the budget for the movie turned out we only received half of the original budget for the movie, and we didn't know the other half wasn't coming until we were halfway shooting the movie.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
So
yeah, that's terrible.
You can imagine the chaos and the shock of the entire crew when the word came out and said, "Okay, we're not getting any more money. We have to plan to finish the movie with half the budget." And so things started being taken out, changed. We don't have that much time to shoot. So there was a definite loss in the content and the quality of the movie, but it still turned out to be a very, in my opinion, a very good film. And the reason why it turned out to be that good is because Albert Magnoli was a brilliant director.
Yeah. And interestingly, because it looks like he also had some, we are fortuitously talking about earlier, dance sequences and musical sequences. That clearly was where Albert came from to some extent, looking at his his credentials on IMDb. So that's fascinating. Moving forward to your PM Entertainment films.
Yes.
The first movie you do with them is 1998's Land of the Free. So PM have been going about 10 years at that point. Were you aware of PM before you worked with them? And how did you kind of get in
Sure.
with the company?
Yes, of course. Like Canon, like New Image, Avi Lerner's company, and PM Entertainment, they were very well known in the industry for doing, in quotes, these kinds of movies.
Right.
And they had already established themselves, as you pointed out, been in business 10 years. But here's what's interesting about all three of those companies, including PM, is that they really went at this with the idea of they were the creators of what we would now call a mini studio.
Yeah.
So they began, for example, when you do a movie, you buy all the clothing, all the wardrobe for everybody in the movie. Well, they kept accumulating that wardrobe over time, so they already had a huge wardrobe section. Yeah. They had all of their key people, wardrobe, hair, makeup, lighting, transportation. They're working movie after movie after movie after movie. And if you can, as a company, guarantee the head of, let's say, wardrobe, you say, look, we're doing 5 movies this year. If you make us a deal, I'll hire you for all 5. Well, to somebody in the movie business, that's the best case scenario, because right. You work for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 months, and then you're out of work until you get hired again. That's so you can imagine. Look, we got 5 movies, we got 10, we got 15. You stay with us, and yes, you're going to work at a reduced rate, but you're going to work all throughout these years coming forward. Well, who isn't going to take that deal?
Right.
And
exactly.
then the cars, the production cars that they bought, the trucks for transportation, then they bought a huge building where they could store everything. And that's where I came into their lives.
Yeah, so they had already accumulated the know-how, the teams, and we've spoken to a lot of people behind the scenes at PM. Joseph and Rick, obviously the two named producing partners.
Yeah.
But also Ken Blakey, the cinematographer, Spiro Rosatos, one of their stunt coordinators, and so on. We've spoken to a lot. Paul Volk, who did a lot of editing and post-production with them. So we've spoken to a lot of people behind the scenes, and we're sort of familiar with the way they put their company together and kind of the speed with which they were filming. And obviously as an action fan, and even as a low budget action fan, because I love all the so-called like A-listers, but some of the stuff that was done, as you say, with these smaller studios or the straight to video set, really some of the stunts they got on screen match, if not beat, a lot of what Hollywood was doing. Because when Hollywood does it, they have to spend millions and millions and millions of dollars. Joseph and Rick just went, Cole S. McKay or Spiro Rosatos or Rick Avery or whoever they're working with, they were just like, come on, do your stuff. You know what I mean? And kind of gave them the room to do their stuff. And as long as it was within the parameters that they had set down. So often their films are more exciting, more successful. They move faster. Right. And when you look back at them now with hindsight, I mean, it's incredible what they achieved on a budget. So someone like me who is
really is. Yeah.
Someone like me, I love that. Let's get together and put on a show attitude. Like it's a big thing for me. And I love the way they were doing it. So you must, as you said, you were attracted to the idea of them saying, Jeff, we've loved your work. Let's get you in, 3, 4, 5 movies. Like, let's start being in the Jeff Speakman business. And the way that they had with Don Wilson and Jeff Wincott and some of your contemporaries within their stable of actors.
Right. Yes, exactly.
But obviously, one of the things that stands out with Land of the Free is that you get to work with William Shatner. If you're a fan of pop culture at all, Shatner has to be in there somewhere. He's been around long enough that that's the case. What was it like working with him on the film? And also, obviously, he's not a fighter in the traditional sense. And you also get to drown him. So talk a little bit about not only working with him as an actor, but also then working with him because he does some rough and tumble stuff at the end. And for a 67-year-old man or whatever he was at the time, it's pretty impressive. So talk us through that relationship on set.
And I'm really glad you brought that up because I grew up watching Star Trek. So, he and Leonard Nimoy were two of my heroes. So to find out I get to do a movie with William Shatner, I just about fell out of my chair.
Yeah.
And ironically, he had taken some martial art lessons from Ed Parker back in the day.
Wow.
So he knew what he knew what Kenpo was. He knew who Ed Parker was. And so finally, from the day I met him all the way through working, he was the nicest person and so gracious and so willing. I mean, normally somebody of his stature, when he's not in the scene, he'll be in his trailer. But he wasn't. He was out on the set, sitting in his chair, watching everything, talking to everybody. He sat and had lunch with all of us instead of having it catered in his trailer. He was just a really good, down-to-earth, regular guy who was also very interested in Kenpo because he knew Ed Parker. So we would have these wonderful conversations all the time. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is Captain Kirk,
Yeah, right.
And then there was that scene where I had to take him down and sit on top of him and beat his face in and all that. And I'm just thinking to myself, man, I'm beating up Captain Kirk. This is just too crazy.
Yeah.
You can imagine growing up one, and then here you are, not only starring in a movie, but you're starring in a movie with him, and you got to kill him. It was such a bizarre, but very interesting. But I want to just say that he was an absolute gem of a guy, and several times I've seen him in Hollywood at restaurants or anything, stands up, hugs me, Jeff, it's so good to see you. It was great working with you. He's just that much of a genuine guy.
Oh, I love hearing that. I really do love hearing that. I've always been a fan of his, all of his, whether it's Star Trek, T.J. Hooker, Boston Legal, any of his stuff. I'm a big fan of his, and he can occasionally get a bum rap in the press from certain people who want to drag his name.
Yeah.
So it's always nice that to hear that actually you had a great experience with him, because I think he's, just from seeing interviews and documentaries and stuff, I feel like he's a funny, interesting guy. But I'm glad to have that confirmed. And obviously you were shooting on a ranch at the end of that film, and Shatner's a big horse guy. Are you also interested in equestrian arts, or was that just his bag?
No, I was, before I moved to LA to study Kenpo, which we spoke about already.
Yeah.
I was attending college in Joplin, Missouri. Spent my first semester living on a ranch, feeding cattle every morning to pay for my room and board as I worked my way through school. So I had, some appreciation for that world. One of my movies, we had some horses in the movie, and I was able to ride, and so I spent all my days over there with the horses, and I loved it.
Yeah.
And yes, he's a very big equestrian guy, and it was a wonderful experience with him.
And PM had by that point become very known for their vehicular madness and carnage and crazy car stunts and things like that.
Crazy.
Obviously, the opening sequence of that movie has a big thing, but then the end sequence in the school bus, I mean, forget about it. Some of the stunts they're doing there is crazy.
Right.
What was it like? I mean, I know that you had been on films where there had sort of been stunts and things like that previously, but what was it like sort of witnessing the PM way of doing it and kind of being amongst their car stunts and pyrotechnics?
They were beyond belief. You just watch my movies. Of course, it's true with all of their movies. But if we just watch mine, you would, if you didn't know better, you would watch one of the many, many car stunts, and you would go, there is no way there's a human being sitting in that car. They had to put a dummy in it and have it be radio controlled and blah, blah, blah. And I'm telling you, that's not true.
Yeah.
They would flip over 20 feet in the air, land on the roof, roll over 3 times. There was somebody sitting in that car with a helmet on, of course, and strapped in and safetied in, but just traveling at incredible rates of speed. And you can imagine what it was like to be sitting there and watching it live. You're just thinking, there's no way that guy's walking out of there. And, the side window kicks open, some guy crawls out, gives it 2 thumbs up, and everybody applauds. and we go to the next shot. It was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it was a wild time, and again, it's because it's just pre CGI. You really know when you're watching a PM Entertainment film, whether it's the expertise of the martial artist or whether it's the expertise of the stunt work. You know that it's all being done for real, and you know that what you're watching is skill at work. Not that there isn't skill in CGI, but it's not a skill that viscerally translates in the way that martial arts and stunts do. So that's why, again, I'm just such a big fan of PM's films and actor martial artists such as yourself. So I couldn't find a fight choreographer or even sort of a fight stunt choreographer listed for the film. So I'm assuming that was all you and your team and the people that you brought to your films. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. In fact, the argument that my agents and managers would present to whomever was interested in having me in their movie is, this comes with the deal. If you want Jeff to be in the movie, you let him choreograph it. He can even help direct and shoot it. His team with Rick Avery is the best at what they do. So it's sort of like, if you're smart, let him do what he does. It'll be cheaper for you, and you'll wind up with amazing fight scenes. And not one place balked at that. Yeah. They all went, yes, of course. I mean, the only thing that did happen to me, if you don't mind me sharing this with you,
please.
Not long after Street Night came out, Warner Brothers approached me with a TV series. So we talked about it. We went into negotiations. We accepted the deal. They gave me a 1-year holding agreement with pay to, once again, hold you so you don't do television anywhere else. I could go on and do whatever movies. And then we got a little bit deeper into the negotiation after deals are signed, after some time went. And of course, in my contract was, as long as it doesn't interfere with the delivery of the piece of the film or the TV series, then Speakman choreographs the fight scenes and edits the fight scenes, which, by the way, he did in his first movie for Paramount, which had the success of these dramatic and dynamic fight scenes. And everybody agreed totally except Warner Brothers. They said, we just don't give actors that kind of authority. And then I intervened. I said, I got an idea. How about if you give me another title? Don't pay me anymore. Just give me another title so you don't have to say an actor had control of the fight scenes, because for some reason that's, I don't know, taboo to you.
Right.
And they just wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it. And I said, I am not doing a martial art movie where I can't control this, because it's my responsibility to maintain the integrity of this martial art we call Kenpo karate. That's on my back. And I know you don't care because you're an editor. What the hell do you care? But I care. It's my life. And they would not hear of it. I said, okay, then you can just pay me my holding fee and we'll do nothing, which is exactly what happened.
Yeah, it's so bizarre, isn't it? Because you would think, again, look, like I said before, if you're doing, jujitsu or karate or something that sort of many people have training in and many people use on film sets, and I'm sure many fight choreographers and stunt workers already are aware of, I can understand it, because you're sort of like, well, look, these are disciplines that are widely practiced and widely known, and have many variations to them and so on. But when you're doing something like Kenpo, and really the only other equivalent I can think of is someone like Seagal with his Aikido, right? There's not many other Aikido people in movies in the same way there aren't many other Kenpo people in movies. And so it would behoove them, you would think, to be like, well, let's get, Ed Parker, Rick Avery, and Jeff Speakman, literally three of the most well-known and creative and inventive. I mean, Ed Parker invented like a whole section of Kenpo. Why wouldn't you want the best working on the movie or the TV show? It doesn't make any sense, other than they've never wanted, much like the music industry, the film industry has never wanted to give the actors or the musicians or whatever too much room to breathe, I guess, or they always want to maintain some sort of level of bizarre control or something. I don't know.
Yes, and really, when you peel back the layers of that onion and you look at it a little deeper, the truth is it's all ego-based. Because as you just pointed out, it makes no sense.
No sense.
Now, if I was just doing a boxing, Rocky kind of a kickboxer movie, of course, those are one move stop. But when you've got 6 or 7 or 8 moves within a same sequence that will last 1.5 to 2 seconds, that's not easy to do. And it's not easy to capture it on camera. Then it's not easy to edit it because it's going so fast, you don't know what the sequence is. So there is no way that anybody with any common sense will go, no, don't let him do it. We can do it better. You can't. You just can't. So, and as crazy as that is, that's how I ended my relationship with Warner Brothers.
Yeah. And did you find that working with PM then, who obviously had a history working with, as I said, Don Wilson, Cynthia Rothrock, Jeff Wincott, other people who were either, martial artists first and became actors, or actors who, like Jeff Wincott, was a strong martial artist. Did you find that they were obviously much more open to that, appreciate it, and actually wanted to kind of get that on screen the way you wanted to?
Yes, they totally got it. There's just no question. And it fits right in with their business model.
Yes.
Which is, it's led by common sense and logic, not by ego. And that's why they succeeded.
Yeah. And did you get to know Joseph Murray or Rick Pepin or anything like that? Or were you more just with because I know that by the time you were with PM, the crews you were working with, a sort of a mishmash of people who they had worked with before. And someone like Ken Blakey is there. He's sort of a mainstay who shot so many of their films. And obviously there were stunt crews and things that they had in place. But the directors for your films are ones that had worked previously with PM, but not in the same way that Joseph had shot his own stuff and Rick had shot his own stuff and so on and so forth. So did you find you got involved with those guys and kept in touch with those guys, or were they more hands-off in the case of this because you were working with different directors?
No, I actually got to know Joseph Murray quite well, and much better than Rick Pepin. Yeah, I've been to Joseph's house several times for dinner. We worked and collaborated closely.
You've accomplished so much, fantastic business, fantastic schools. And sir, honestly, with all my heart and all my respect, thank you so much for this conversation. It has been absolutely wonderful. And the podcast listeners will really, truly appreciate it.
Great. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And for everybody out there listening, know that in my heart is the heart of a martial artist. That's all I've wanted all my life, and I'm living a wonderful life. I'm extremely happy, and I have a great life with all my schools around the world. I love and care for my black belt students, and I know they feel the same about me. And it's a wonderful life that I have, and I'm extremely grateful that I had the opportunity to do the movies that I did. Yeah. And I want to take a moment and thank you, because your questions are just spot on. You know exactly what you're talking about. So I want to just tell you how grateful I am for this opportunity.
Well, that's very kind, sir. Very kind. Thank you so much.
Again, we're getting like the PM action. Like you said, this is the point in the movie when he's at the park and he catches these guys bothering him. He kind of takes them into an alley and beats the crap out of them, Kenpo style, with the quick punches and all those things. So he's beating the crap out of people. There's car chases, there's shootouts. Colas McKay shows up to the safe house and Speakman's gunning them down with a shotgun. So it's like the action's starting to ramp up, but the music is acting like we're still in the earlier sequences of the film.
Yeah, the music never, ever raises above. Do you know what the music is? I've never seen that show Jag. I've never seen that show Jag, right? I've never seen it.
Jag, yes, yeah,
right.
Yeah.
That show, isn't that about naval things or whatever?
Right, Navy attorneys, yeah.
I imagine that the Jag soundtrack sounds like this movie. If someone said to me, "Oh, they've stolen the Jag soundtrack,"
right,
that's what I mean. I've never seen Jag, but by having
you're
seen the front cover of Jag, I assume the soundtrack play, because this whole thing plays like this very bland, cod heroic naval music, like throughout the whole thing. And what's interesting is Eric Idle tells this story about Holy Grail. When Monty Python and the Holy Grail were making that, they went to Neil Innes from the Bonzo Dog Doodah Band and Rutland Weekend Television and the Ruttles, and perform in his own right, Neil Innes. And they went to him and they said, do us an authentic medieval soundtrack. So we got together all these like lute players and sackbut players and all this sort of old medieval thing and did a very authentic medieval soundtrack. And when they put it against the movie died. And what they realized was there's one extra element to the movie that they hadn't thought of, and that is a sort of Excalibur parody, like those cod Arthurian film parodies. And so what they did was they went off to the DeWolf library, got a whole bunch of library music, and then that big grandiose dun 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 dun, that thing that plays throughout the whole of Holy Grail, this sort of Arthurian theme, adds this weight to the movie. It takes the movie from being, a bunch of comedians wearing woolen chainmail in a soggy thicket in Scotland to being a big Arthurian legend, right? They went, look, we love the authentic sackbut stuff. Neil, you've done a great job, but it's killing our movie. And they went to the DeWolf library and they got all this music that made their movie go, yes, now it lives, now it flies. Now even though people are banging coconuts together, once that music starts, the audience is off on the ride. You know what I mean? Like it adds to that, that pomp and circumstance. PM should have done that, is what I'm saying. PM should have heard it and gone, look, this might be what it sounds like at the naval barracks on a Friday night when, drunk Mickey McGill is playing his Casio keyboard in the corner while you all fall over, right? That might be very authentic naval barracks or naval training school music. It might be. I'm not doubting you. But enough. We need to throw it out, and we need to go to, see if there's any like John Bon Jovi cutoffs that we can buy, or maybe John Parr will do us a theme or something like that. You know what I mean? Listen, they could have gone to Halfpenny. You would have done a better job than this.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I mean, was it because I don't think it was too late for Halfpenny at this point. I think he was still making music for PM. Because we get into some of these chase sequences that come up in this movie are some of the best in PM. Now I say some of the best. I mean, there's some that like just, like Sweeper, Recoil, whatever, that this doesn't come close to touching. But they are some amazing car chase sequences that, I mean, the music, it just completely betrays them. It's really fascinating when you watch it a second time, especially where you're just like, this is the music that they're using while Speakman is like flying down the highway in a bus. And then there's a point where the bus, so to give people an idea what happens, they're in the motel and they get attacked. And so they need to escape. And the only vehicle is a bus. So Speakman gets in the bus, the wife and son pile into the bus, and they're riding off down the highway. And, eventually some guy who's like probably like in his late 50s, who's on the hood of a car, who like jumps onto the bus.
They send the oldest dude in history. First of all, it's incredibly impressive that there's an old dude doing this stunt for real. I mean, he's really doing this
He's
stunt.
like hanging on the front. Yes.
He crawls out of the sunroof. It's not even a moonroof, Matt. It's a sunroof.
Right.
Tiny little sunroof. Crawls out of that. Right. I would have been thrown clear of the car just doing that. But him in like dress shoes and a blazer, like he's dressed like Roger Moore would be dressed in like a mid-70s Bond movie. You know what I mean? Dress shoes, beige pants, and a blazer. And I always thought, why is Roger Moore running over crocodiles in fucking dress shoes? But that was Roger Moore. Same with this guy, but it's the J.C. Penney version. It's the J.C. Penney version of the Savile Row Roger Moore, right? It's the throw a blazer on him and a tie and dress shoes. Okay, he looks like an agent now. Just throw him out the car, right? He climbs out of the sunroof, goes down the windscreen, across the hood, and the car pulls right up to the back of the school bus, and he just steps on it. It's beautifully done. Beautifully done.
It's beautiful. And so at that point, Speakman's like, well, okay, my wife can't beat this guy up, so I've got to go beat him up. So she's got to drive the car. Right now, classic PM style. She looks really uncomfortable behind the wheel of the bus. Right, she's like kind of this big gaudy steering wheel. She doesn't know what she's doing, but she has the presence of mind to say, oh, this guy's got a gun and he's coming for my husband. I should jerk the wheel so he fall. I mean, it seems like everybody in PM has combat training, right? They all know what to do in these circumstances.
Also, they're throwing this old man who's just like, fuck, I just had to get out onto a moving car to get it. They're now throwing him around a school bus. He hits the roof. He hits the chair. He's all over the place.
Yeah. And then like Speakman, who's been able to take out people like 5 at a time for most of this movie, somehow this old guy has got him by the throat and is like, but really all Speakman's really, it looks like Speakman's like struggling to try to beat this guy up, to stop this guy. Eventually though, he just throws the guy out and it's like the guy gets run over by his teammate, which is just like, one of those, like,
that is like a hardcore man going under Bronco sequence in this movie. I mean, that you do not see that coming. That's a whoa moment. No. That's a what the Jiminy Christmas. That was that's that moment. By the way, just for anybody keeping score, Jim Halfpenny, aforementioned composer of such classic scores as A Dangerous Place, Riot, and Little Bigfoot 2, The Journey Home, did in fact continue to work with PM after Land of the Free, because when Speakman came back to the PM fold for the very following years, Running Red, Joseph and Rick had decided enough's enough with this Cohen guy. Bring back in Halfpenny, and Halfpenny, give me a fucking soundtrack Speakman can be proud of. It's like Speakman was not happy with Cohen's. Speakman's not happy. He wants Halfpenny, and he wants him now.
Yeah, but he must have seen the final cut of this, and he's doing all his Kenpo stuff to this like playing in the background while he's like,
I have to say, I'm not usually one for the criticism of PM, but I will say this because I think it's honest. I think they did Speakman a little dirty with his first film because they didn't give him the full might of PM. They half PM'd him, right? Yeah. So you've got Collis McKay, and that's why we've got some great stunts in this movie, right? Yeah. And you've got obviously Speakman and Shatner and the wonderful cast. You've got Ken Blakey, so it means that at least the movie's not going to look like complete crap. Although I have to say, there's not the usual visual flourishes that there are in other PM films, but it's absolutely fine. No one's knocking Ken. But then you give him a director you've never worked with, and a composer you've never worked with, and an editor that you have worked with, but I don't think has edited your best stuff. And so I have to say you've done a disservice, which is why I think Running Red, I think you were like, okay, we've got to figure this out, and I think they did a bit more. I mean. Yeah, because you've got Jerry P. Jacobs. Now, he directed A Dangerous Place. So you've got Jim Halfpenny, you've got Ken Blakey, you've got Jerry P. Jacobs, Rick Avery as the second unit director on this. Spiro Rosatos is a stunt performer on Running Red. Gene LaBelle does stunts on this thing. Like, he gives him a much more robust crew for the unofficial sequel, Running Red. It's not a sequel. It just has Speakman in it.
Right.
And so, I think that's my only thing about Land of the Free. Yeah. Now, Shatner, Speakman, and the final car chase save the movie. They elevate it. I would also say I don't like the editing in this film. I feel like it does the Kenpo a disservice, especially. I feel like his Kenpo is better elsewhere. Yeah. So Shatner is charismatic. He's menacing.
Yeah.
He knows the character he's playing. He knows who this is modeled on. And it's interesting because in the second ever Columbo episode, because Shatner did Columbo back in the 70s and then did Columbo again in the 90s, he also plays he's a shock jock in Columbo, but it is again a sort of Shatnerific send up of mid to late 90s celebrity.
Yeah.
And not just politic celebrity, but like that kind of cheeseball, every interview they've got a book to hawk, fake hair, fake face, fake bravado. And I think Shatner is intelligent enough and funny enough to like realize what this parody is, and also why they've got him, because I think that the world looks at Shatner like the character in Land of the Free, and I look at Shatner like the man who knows how to play the character in Land of the Free. I think Shatner's got a much slyer, more interesting sense of humor than people give him credit for.
Yeah. No,
but he's fantastic in the film.
Yeah, I agree completely, because he plays this part two ways. You know, again, going back to the Dangerous Place episode where we talked about Marshall Teague, where he took a character as kind of more of a scenery chewing baddie and made him much more sinister. Shatner knew when to do the scenery chewing baddie, because this movie required scenery chewing baddie as opposed to Marshall Teague's where you'd want it, but he didn't do it. This one needed the scenery chewing baddie, but he knew when to pull it back and be sinister, right? Like there were moments where he's talking to Speakman and he says things like, you know, it's like, oh, isn't it great? Oh, you know, best defense money can buy, you know, all this kind of stuff. And he's like, things are going to get a lot worse for you, you know, or like, you know, when he's at his house and he's like, just, you know, catch this guy, I'm going to rip his head off or whatever. You know, it's like he knew when to do it.
He says, I'm going to rip his fucking head off.
Yeah. It's so that's the thing that Shatner was so great with in this movie, is that he plays it both ways at exactly the right moments that you need to play it both ways. So it's like fun when it needs to be fun, and it's diabolical or you know, despicable when it needs to be that too. It's one of those things where a movie like this can get a Shatner, and it brings a whole nother thing to the movie. You're right. People don't give him enough credit for this kind of thing.
Yeah, no, 100%. And he's fantastic. And Speakman is great.
Yes.
Like what I love about Speakman is that, and it's funny. We were talking about the two Jeffs having never done a film together. I would love to have seen a double Jeff film. And the reason that I would have loved to have seen that is that Jeff Speakman and Jeff Wincott, both great actors for their, you know, because they're also martial artists and everything else. Great actors. Yeah.
Well, and Speakman, you know, it's interesting with Speakman because he's from Chicago originally. And I guess like he must in real life have like a thicker Chicago accent that he covers up with the way he speaks in these movies. It's like this clean announcer voice that he has when he's talking to people that just, it just adds this whole other level. You know, in a way, you can believe him more when he's behind a computer, when he talks like that, you know, that like, oh yeah, Speakman would know how to use a computer, you know, in 1998. It's kind of it's a fascinating thing. But it's one of those things. I mean, I guess because he, you know, the Perfect Weapon didn't go as well as it needed to. Street Night came at the end of Cannon's run and kind of got lost in the shuffle, that and then the market was kind of saturated with these guys, that he never quite took off like he should have. But you watch something like this and you're like, yeah, I want to root for him. I want to follow him.
Right. I just wish he would change that shirt.
Right.
It's how I feel.
Right.
I'm just saying.
Exactly.
I wish he would change the shirt. He does eventually, yes, ladies and germs, change the shirt when he goes on and all of a sudden, well, first of all, hang on a second. Yeah. There is the school bus chase, right, which ends with his wife and kid trapped in a school bus, hit full on by another truck and flat out explodes. Right. And I have to say that my friend Jim Wallace, who was watching it with me, went, "Oh, good. Did they kill the family?" That's what he said. When we were watching it, he goes, "Oh, good. Did they kill the family?" Right. And I'm like, I don't think they killed the family. Well, like PM might kill a family at the beginning of a movie. Yeah. I don't see them killing a family at the end of a movie.
No, Recoil they did in the middle. Right. But even then it was kind of beginning middle-ish. So that was probably the latest that you kill a family is Recoil, I'd say. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think this was too late to kill a family. Right. But it did get them out of the way. so that Speakman could don his trademark all-black street night getup.
Yes.
And take on to Shatner's compound in the California hills. But first, Matt, he has to go buy some equipment at a hardware store. And he has to go buy bombs from a crazy old man with a mangled face. Yeah. Two of my favorite scenes. If you want Ken Blakey making something look... No, I mean genuinely. Yeah. The two scenes with the guy with the damaged face.
Don Stroud.
Bomb making expert.
Don Stroud, yeah.
Don Stroud,
yeah.
right. The scene with Don Stroud, and there's two scenes in the movie where he keeps asking, like, please let me come on the raid with you, which is so funny because later in Jack Reacher, when Jack Reacher goes to the gun range and befriends Robert Duvall very quickly, Robert Duvall goes on the last compound attack when Jack Reacher, Tom Cruise, goes after Werner Herzog. Yeah. So in this situation, Shatner is Herzog and Speakman is Cruise. And unfortunately, they don't take Don Stroud along with them. But those two scenes when they're shooting in the junkyard with Don Stroud, I thought those two scenes looked really good.
Yeah, it seems like with the Blakey films that there's always these like moments where he puts in, shots and edits and, or, just kind of the way he frames things. And I think you're right that this movie, he didn't get as many of those opportunities for whatever reason to kind of have those more inspired moments. But yeah, you're right, because overall that sequence feels out of place, right? It's like we just introduced Don Stroud, character actor who's usually does bigger roles. He's just here as this Machine Gun Joe character, like you said, his face is partially burned. We find out that he's kind of a pyromaniac. He's like kind of addicted to, so that's part of the reason why Speakman doesn't want to take him along. It's just kind of an interesting wrinkle in the script to be like, let's have this crazy bomb guy be there that really wants to blow stuff up. And Speakman has to be like, no, you can't come with me. Yeah, it's a very PM wrinkle in a movie. And then to have Blakey shoot it so well, it's just another element to it.
Yeah, no, completely. So Don Stroud is fantastic in his little cameo. And again, it's one of those things, there's a couple of moments in this, what we're going to be calling like PM moments throughout the thing, PM moments. The ice cream and or bird poo on the shoe when he's talking to the naval officer. Right. Why? It's almost like they were like, well, we need a reason for him to leave. And I'm like, isn't the reason for him to leave the fact that he's done departing the information to Jeff? Oh, no, we need him to leave in a weird way because it's a PM entertainment moment. So we're going to have him step into, what was that, Matt? Was it ice cream, bird poo? What was it?
It seemed like ice cream because it was so voluminous. I mean, what bird goes to the bathroom like that?
Well, it could have been a runny bird poo. Yeah, it could have been a liquidy.
It was like, it covered the whole shoe. Yeah, it was like...
But how do you step in ice cream and get it all over your shoe? Like I get like stepping in ice cream and maybe there's like a bit of the blob of the ice cream coming up over the sole of the shoe and maybe just like on the front. But this was runny ice cream all over the shoe. Right. Unless it had fallen. Unless it had fallen in front of you on your shoe.
If you're not paying attention, that's what you think happened. Because I think that's what happened. I was like IMDb'ing it. And I was like, wait, what happened?
Was he eating an ice cream while he walked along and I just don't remember?
No, I think he stepped inside. It was, or some kid dropped the ice cream. It was, it was like you said, it was a very PM moment. It's like, of all the ways to end that sequence, because anytime you're in a movie when they're doing a conspiracy conversation, right? It's like, they're sitting on a bench. They come up with guys called the conspiracy bench, right? People sit on a bench. They just go, they do their conversation, and they part, right? Like, that's all you need.
Yeah, that's all you need.
But it's like, no. I mean, it'd be like if like in some kind of movie like that, like in the, like a TNT new classic from the early 2000s, Morgan Freeman and, Tommy Lee Jones are sitting there talking about the conspiracy and a pigeon just comes and takes a dump on Morgan Freeman. And like, oh boy.
I've got to get up and go.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Yes.
Donald Sutherland and Kevin Costner in JFK. Right. And then halfway through his soliloquy, by the way, best scene in the whole film. Hands down. Best scene in the whole film. Donald Sutherland doing nothing other than narrating a story, holds the audience rapt. Yeah. And it is absolutely fantastic. Yeah. My favorite segment of the whole movie. Yeah. So imagine if that's happening, and then a guy walking along eating like a hole in the wall bolognese out of like a polystyrene packet. And as he's walking along eating this, he just goes, "Don't want it anymore," and threw it at. And he said it like that as well in an English accent. "I don't want it anymore." Like Ray Winston. "I don't want it anymore." And he just throws the polystyrene container with bolognese at Donald Sutherland. And Donald Sutherland, without breaking a sweat, looks at Kevin Costner and just goes, "I have to go now." And he just gets up and leaves. Imagine if that's how they ended the movie. Or they ended that scene.
That would have been PM style. That would have been the PM way to end this scene.
I just like that a PM screenwriter is like, wait, we need some reason for him to leave. Why? Because friends, when they get together, just spend every week, like they never leave unless someone gets something on their shoe. Yeah, it's wonderful. It's one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
So we have that. We also have the cluck thing.
The nose
thing.
quack thing. Yes. What?
Not cluck, quack. Sorry,
yes.
he holds the nose, and he only releases the nose if the kid says quack.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, Matt, I came up with a bleak ending to this movie. Okay. So post the bus explosion. Right. The wife and son, who are both run from the bus explosion by Speakman, are put in hospital because they're both really badly beat up. The wife's got a gammy leg and a bad neck, and the son has slipped into a coma, right? And we all know, because they've done the quack at the beginning to establish the quack.
Right.
Then they do the quack in the middle when the kid's all scared, even though right before the kid crying, he says, "That was cool, Dad," after the car chase. So 1 minute the kid's fine, the next minute he's in tears in a motel room, right? He goes in and does the quack in the motel room, and it like cheers up the son. So we know the quack works. The quack's a thing, right? Then, by the way, Speakman's wife gets so horned up by the fact that Speakman solved the problem with his son that she's like, "You're such a good father. I'm going to take you right here, right now." And that's what happens, because when you're on the run in a PM entertainment film, you just have an outrageously horned up wife who's like, "I'm so attracted right now." It happens in Rage. We talked about it in Rage.
Yes, that's right.
They go to his sensei's yacht, and she's like, "I'm so incredibly horned up right now." And Gary's like, "I'm on the run, panic. The last few days have been terrible." "I know, but I think we should have lots of sex."
It's like, okay, yeah, all right.
Yeah, why not? Same thing happens here when you're on the run with a PM Entertainment leading man. Nookie will ensue. So anyway, we know the quack works, right? We're all about the quack. At the end of the movie, we know that what's going to bring him out of the coma is the quack. Yeah. We know that the quack is going to be the first thing he says, right? Sure enough, when he comes out of the coma, he says quack. Speakman and the wife look over, and it's a moment of joy. And then in comes Stephen Cohen with more to end the movie, which is meant to be this big, like, "Oh, it's wonderful, he's alive," and whatever. So all that plays out the same. This is how I would change it, right? So it's a big happy moment. The soundtrack, like, it's indicating happiness in the way that only Stephen Cohen can, with deep, depressive Casio trumpets. Stephen Cohen can only express true joy through the despair of discordant and boring Casio trumpets. It's true. So right at that moment, suddenly, the little boy goes quack again, right? And they both laugh. But then the soundtrack goes from da-da-da-da to like da-da-da-da. And then as it goes like that, starts to bend. Right. The little boy just goes quack, quack, quack. And then everyone realizes that the only thing the boy can say anymore is quack. And the movie ends on this bombshell.
With like somber music playing as the credits go, right?
No, the music just like it's just this like he reduces his Casio trumpets to like a slow groan, right. And the kid with really panicked eyes, almost like the kid is like inside himself, knowing how to speak, but the only thing that's coming out is quack, and he's just like, quack, quack, and it just like cuts to Jeff Speakman's like terrified face, and then it cuts back to the kid just going quack, and it ends. The movie just fucking ends. That's how you do it, Matt.
That would have been the yes.
Wouldn't that be great?
That would have been the PM ending, in right? Like that would have been our PM moment as the PM ending.
Yeah, that would be like the Dangerous Place ending.
Right, exactly.
That'd be like, how do we top the fact that we hung a guy's brother in front of him? Oh, well, we're going to have the little boy that we all just hope pulls through. Because it's basically the PM equivalent of little Timmy gets his medicine and, the criminals are all rounded up and put in the local jail. And then Lassie runs out of the town and goes on to the next town to help that little Timmy get his medicine, right? It's basically that ending. It's like, we've got to know the boy's got to pull through. The coma kid has got to wake up. Well, if it was just flipped on its head and all he could say was quack, that would have been
perfect. That would have been perfect.
Yes. So let's just do then a final roundout. Do you have any favorite scenes that we have not yet discussed in the movie?
So I think in that last scene where there's he's at the
he attacks the compound.
Right.
We didn't finish
so
that up.
He's putting the bombs everywhere, like just hiding, just like opening up cabinets and putting bombs in, just refrigerator and one of
the point that when a henchman is looking around for like a granola bar or something,
he finds a bomb.
He just opens the kitchen cabinet and goes, "Oh, it's a fucking bomb in here." And not only that, but Speakman has it set for 5 minutes, which is the longest period of time ever.
Right. And like the best part is that part of Speakman's plan with this was, I'm going to go into this guy's garage and steal one of his cars and drive away as that place explodes. And he realizes that the first car he goes to, the alarm goes off. So he goes in this old car, he can't get it to start. And so it's like the countdown's going.
He hasn't planned a car.
Right.
He's just hoped,
right,
beyond shadow of a hope, that Shatner has left the keys to his classic car collection in the garage. Yeah. And he hasn't. Shatner hasn't left the keys there.
No.
But yeah, what a badly thought out plan.
Yeah. So he does finally, that he gets out, he's like spinning the car around or whatever. So as Shatner's going to escape with Mac from Night Court
in a helicopter.
Speakman's able to stick one of his last C4 bomb on the bottom of the helicopter, and he's hanging off of it, and Shatner's like trying to kick him. And somehow both of them fall out.
Who thought you would see a scene where Shatner and Speakman would be hanging ridiculously from a helicopter?
Yeah. And then, Mac tries to shoot him from the ground, then eventually the helicopter blows up. And then Shatner, he just starts beating the crap out of Shatner. And he's like doing the ground and pound stuff. And then he lays up on him, and Shatner's like, "You don't have the guts to kill me," which I feel like from a psychology standpoint, that's the dumbest thing you can do. Like if somebody's pointing a gun at me or somebody's beating the crap out of me, the last thing I want to do is egg them on. You don't have the guts to beat me up. It's like, I'd be like, "Thank you for stopping beating me up. I appreciate that you're stopping." But then, Speakman takes him and starts kind of dunking him. He's kind of baptizing him in the pond at the ranch.
But fair play to Shatner for doing this stunt.
Right.
60, whatever he was when this movie was made. And 67? 66?
Yeah, 667. Yeah.
Yeah. So here he is at 67 doing his own stunt. Now, fair play to him. He does a full-blown, drowning sequence.
Yeah. Yeah. And and it is like, the Shatner, one of the things is like, you would think, because obviously, Speakman could beat the crap out of Shatner, that there isn't much that you can do with that, but they do it well enough that it's kind of, you want to see him get his comeuppance. And you want to see this sort of the ending here. And like you said,
but Speakman just flat out kills him.
Right. Yeah. Eventually
there's no like normally in an action movie, there's like, "Do you want any more? Do you want any more?" And they're like, "No." And then he's like, "Fine, I'll go and arrest you." And as he's arresting you, they pull out like a knife or a gun. He has to kill him. Right. Yeah. In this, Speakman just flat out murders a guy.
Yeah.
But why, Matt? Why? We find out in this final sequence that Land of the Free is all about his dead dog.
Yeah.
Speakman is avenging the death of his dog.
Yeah.
This is Jeff Speakman as John Wick as Jeff Speakman. Right. That is what this
well,
is.
Because,
right?
It's funny because you talked about how, like, Recoil and other PM movies, they kill off the kids, right? They'll kill off the wife and kids and whatever. And I'm usually like, okay, I'd rather you don't kill kids, but okay, you did it. It gives them the motive. But
I'd rather you don't
when Shatner killed
Matt Perea taking a hard stance against killing kids. Good for you, man.
But like when a dog, right? When they killed the dog, and like and they've got the dog like hanging in the yard dead, and there's a line that says something like, blood will be let, or whatever. It's like,
no, it says let sleeping dogs lie.
Sleeping dogs lie.
Let sleeping dogs lie, because when he breaks into Shatner's compound, Shatner knows he's in the house because he comes down, and on the mirror he has written in lipstick. Yeah. This is another fantastic thing, is that Jeff Speakman found lipstick and used it to write on the mirror, "Let sleeping dogs lie," to which Shatner knows, which means that Shatner was in very implicitly on the murder of the dog, right? Yeah. Because otherwise, how would he connect the two "Let sleeping dog lie" slogan?
Yeah. And so from a PM standpoint, if they've got their rules, and it's like, hey, it's one thing for you to kill kids, and sure, that's revenge, but you kill an animal,
yeah, fuck you. You're being drowned in a horse pond, my friend.
Yeah, and it's funny because I talked to the screenwriter who wrote not the Recoil from PM, but the one that with Steve Austin, Johnny Sullivan, and he knew. When John Wick was in development, he was telling me about it, and he was saying how, like, from a screenwriting standpoint, that they teach you that kind of thing. That, like, if you're going to kill a dog off, just know, like, what that's going to do for the audience, because a dog is it's a helpless creature. Everybody loves their dogs. It's the kind of thing that, like, if you're going to write something like that in a movie, don't do it flippantly. Like, don't do it just
So it's funny. Colin Farrell was talking about this with his TV show Sugar on the Apple TV network. Have you seen that?
No,
show?
I haven't.
Do you know of it?
No.
It's a private detective show. It's really, really great. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it's a really, really great show. In it, Colin Farrell has to do some morally ambiguous stuff. And Colin Farrell talked about on the show, he's like, my character does a lot of unlikable stuff, but the writers were very clever. They gave me a dog, and in the scenes that I'm in with the dog seems to trust me. And audiences read, if a dog trusts him, he must be okay. Yeah. So whatever heinous, beatings and masquerings that he's a part of, it's fine because a dog loves him. That was like right up until that. That's a recent TV show in the last 3 years, and they literally did that audience check. If we give him a dog, will it indeed?
Right, it worked. Well, because the actor that kills John Wick's dog in the first John Wick movie, he said it was like very traumatic for him, and he would have to like spend time with the dog after the scenes, like pet the dog and stuff. It was really hard for him to even do that in the movie. And granted, in this movie, nobody does it, right? We just find the dog after the fact, but
well, what we find is a taxidermist dog hanging from a bit of string from a tree
with some red paint on.
No one's going to mistake this for anything that was recently alive.
Right, they've had a golden retriever stuffed animal at the local, FAO Schwartz or something. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but look, it's fine. It has a bloody note attached to it that says "Let sleeping dogs lie," which is enough for you to go, all right. I have to say, though, by the time you get to the Chekhov's dead dog reveal on Shatner's mirror, I had all but forgotten that they had even murdered the dog. So when I suddenly realized, oh, shit, Speakman's out for fucking revenge about his dog. I mean, he loves his wife and his kid, but you fuck with his dog, and he's coming. There's a brilliant bit. Shatner comes down the stairs. He looks around, he goes, my antiques, my things. And you're like, you see it dawn on Shatner, and this is why he's such a good actor. You see it dawn on Shatner, everything he's about to lose and cannot save. Yeah. And then right off the back of that, he sees that thing on the mirror, and he's like, I am fucked. Yeah. I killed a dog. That was me. Speakman is destroying everything I love, killing everyone around me, and then will ultimately drown me in a horse pond. He knows it all there and then. He sees it coming.
Right, because before before that part where he says my antiques, that's when the guard, one of the guards, just happens to open up a pantry looking for Speakman and sees the bomb, and he tells him there's a bomb,
right.
and Shatner knows. Oh,
well, that's when Shatner's in the robe.
Right.
That's when Shatner's in the blue robe, and they burst in on him in the blue robe. And he's like, "I'm wearing a blue robe," and they're like, "We know, but there are bombs in the cupboard. I think Speakman wants to take out our cereal."
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's when he's like, "Oh, he's going to blow up my house, my antiques, everything is going to go." Yeah, and you're right. And then he sees that sign, and he's like, "Oh, okay, yeah." And he tells Mac from Night Court to, when you get him, I'm going to rip his fucking head off. Which of course he knows that's. I mean, I guess maybe there's a part of him that thinks I can still prevail in this, but.
Right.
But I think you're right. Like, he's kind of resigned himself to the fact that, like, because when he's in the pond, he kind of resigns himself to the fact that he's going to get drowned. He just kind of,
Yeah. In the scene leading up to the compound attack, right when we see him with Don Stroud buying the bombs and all the rest of it, Speakman is living in a seedy motel and has set up a shopping mall security camera and a little like portable CRT carrying television so that he can see if he gets any henchmen are coming down the corridor towards him in the hotel, right? And we know that he just went and bought these from the hardware store because he takes them out of a bag with there's no box, no price, no tag, no nothing. They are crudely wrapped in bubble wrap.
Right.
That's it. Because when you buy an expensive security store camera and an expensive CRT and an expensive like regular camera like around your neck, like a Kodak with like a huge thing, all they do, Matt, you don't get bags or boxes or anything to protect them. They just wrap them in a bit of bubble wrap and get on with it. So he sets all this up. The largest henchman ever to hench. This man looks like Andre the Giant in a dinner suit, right? Is coming up the thing. And again, PM Entertainment, blow the hell out of this guy. The only thing that we should have seen that my friend Jim said, he's like, "Oh, that's a lot of sausage. We should have seen some of that sausage fly." And I can't disagree. Right. Matt, your rebuttal.
Yeah, no, a good intestine, yeah. It's kind of one of those things where, it's interesting, like with that, because you look at like someone like a Stallone. Stallone likes guts. He likes, he loves that kind of thing. Whereas like PM, it's interesting with PM when it came to their violence was that like they were like big on bullets and explosions and all of that stuff, but they weren't big on body parts, right? Like they didn't really do.
No, although there is a knee squib in this movie. He blows out a guy's kneecap, and the actor has a knee squib. Yeah. That's pretty cool, like a bloody.
That's right. Yeah. So but they were not quite as like on the like kind of the gratuitous body part thing. But you're right. I think that it could have used it there.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like because Speakman kind of runs to another part of the room and like hides behind a door. And what I wanted was just like an errant intestine, just like splat against the wall. Right. And maybe just bits of sausage meat fly by Speakman's head. You know what I mean? Maybe gets a little in his hair, and it's in their hair for the rest of the movie. Right. No one really comments on it, but yeah. I don't really understand what that scene was all about, other than we show everyone that what he bought was a bomb, like as if people didn't realize that was plastic explosives. I guess that was a way to be like, by the way, these are bombs if you didn't get it already.
Well, it was that, and they were getting antsy because remember, you've got the bus has crashed. Speakman has saved his kids. The bus explodes and blows up the guy with it. But then it's this long period of there's the trial. There's Shatner hospital, right? Shatner gets acquitted. He goes to the hospital, tells his wife, "Hey, I'm going to cash out our money. We're going to run away." She knows he's not cashing out the money so they can run away. He's cashing out the money to build an arsenal. He goes to see Don Stroud. So all this stuff is happening from a PM standpoint. This is way too long without action. And they knew he was going to have to go back to the compound and like hide bombs everywhere. And that was going to take time too. So they're like, we need something in here so we don't go
blow up a seedy motel.
Exactly.
Blow up an enormously fat henchman.
Exactly. That'll be enough to kind of just reset the timer for how long they can go without an action sequence. I think that's really the only reason why they did it. Because I was even feeling it myself. I was like, this movie should be over at this point. Like, what are we doing here? And then they blow up the hotel. I'm like, okay, all right, I'm back. You got me back in.
Yeah, I'm back in. I'm back into it. Yeah, you blew up the large man in the suit, and away we go.
Exactly.
So then he attacks the compound. It's all for the dog, and we get talk us through the helicopter sequence, and obviously your friend from the Exploding Helicopters blog favorite part of this movie.
Yes, yeah, Will had love this. Where, I mean, the best is that he just sticks this thing on the bottom of the helicopter, and then like he's like hanging from it, and Shatner's kicking him off, and then they kind of both fall down. The helicopter gets low enough that it's okay for them to fall down. And then there's Mac from Night Court is trying to shoot Speakman with an Uzi, and there's no way he can aim properly and shoot him with this Uzi, because the problem was Speakman set the timer for too long. So he
sets the timer for like 5 minutes. So you have this whole end sequence where the helicopter is just flying back and forth, and it sort of neuters a little bit of the countdown. Like it should have been, I don't know, 2 minutes or 90
or even
seconds
like just a switch, click. Use the remote, just it'll blow it up when you flip the switch, And the funny thing is, like, I think there's a sense that Shatner's character has that he can still escape on the helicopter because he can't see from underneath this big bomb that's underneath the helicopter.
Oh no, Shatner sees the bomb.
Okay.
That's why Shatner sees the bomb, and that's why he jumps off.
Oh, right. Okay.
But what Shatner doesn't do is he doesn't alert Mac from Night Court that there's a bomb on the helicopter. But this was the other thing. When Speakman was hiding out in the sleazy motel, he had drawn an excellent map of Shatner's compound. Right. And what I really liked about it was that he had even drawn in all the trees. Yes. He had, instead of just writing, tree line or whatever, he drew in trees. And we were scoffing. Jim and I watching this, we were scoffing. Oh, look at him. He's drawn in the trees. Why is he drawn in the trees? Nobody, just write the word trees. But what happens, Matt? He needs those trees. He uses them. In the first half of the scene, it's so that he can jump out at a security guard and knock him out and tie him up with zip ties. Right. Later on in the scene, it's to escape Mac from Night Court's gunfire. Yeah. So that's why he mapped out the trees. It was important.
It was a
plot point.
Little like Shakespearean, right? Like Midsummer Night's Dream with the people hiding his tree. Yeah.
Chekhov's trees is what it was. Exactly. It was Chekhov's trees.
Exactly.
It had Chekhov's dead dog. Now it was Chekhov's trees.
Exactly. If you draw trees on the map, you've got to use them in that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. No, you're right. So that was about it. Yeah. Sorry. So that's all I had on the movie.
Yeah, same.
And I'm glad we brought all that up because I think that filled in a lot of gaps from earlier on.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of this thing, I think the music makes it for a fascinating watch. I think it's from an action standpoint, PM has done this better, but they also, this is better than a lot of action movies that you're going to see, especially in the 2000s that come after this. Like this, 98, this is really, this is much better than a lot of things that come after it from an action standpoint. And so
and Running Red's pretty good as well.
Yeah, I've got to see that one
the following year. So,
yeah.
That's pretty good as well. So PM is still have game to play in this era of their company. They still have some tricks up their sleeve and dead dogs hanging from their trees. Right. Yeah, I think it's compromised with the editing, compromised with the soundtrack. I think it's got a compelling story. I think that things are either getting more expensive and not selling as much, so therefore PM are cutting corners, or they're just not getting the same amount of money to make the films as they were, or the money's not going as far as it was in the early 90s or the late 80s. And I feel that you start to see some corners being cut compared to the 94, 95, 96 run, 97 classic run of PM.
Yeah. And you can look at it from a timeline standpoint, right? Seagal has made The Patriot. He still gets exit wounds in. But he and Van Damme, they're kind of starting to fall out of the major action world, but also the big studios are starting to look at this as a moneymaker for them. So I guess it would have still been Columbia, maybe not Sony at that point, but they, Warner, Universal, they're all looking at what PM is doing, what Corman with New Conquered Horizon, what they're doing as well, and thinking there's money to be had in this world. we can make these movies, and they can put a little bit more behind them than the PM films. I think also too, filming in LA was starting to get harder. I think it was starting to get, they took advantage of a lot of guerrilla tactics they were able to do, but also, you're starting to see TV shows and movies getting filmed in Canada more at this point. And so for PM to work exclusively in LA, it was going to be more expensive too, I think. So that's probably also where corners were being cut, is to be able to film some of these shots in LA that they were doing.
And like I like to do on this show, we are going to wrap up right before the rating that we're going to give this movie. I want to point out low budget filmmaking techniques. I like to, as we come across them in PM entertainment films, low budget film making techniques. How do we know that the guy who he meets, who is his friend, is a naval officer? Because he's wearing the whites, right? He's wearing the naval uniform, right? But we only see them walk across a bridge, right? They talk a bit, he gets ice cream on his shoe, he buggers off, right? They didn't need to go to a naval academy or the flight deck of an aircraft carrier. They didn't need to spend a lot of money. They just went and got a generic naval uniform costume, right? What's that going to shoot you in 98? What, $100?
Maybe not even that much, because they might have deals or they might have deals with costumers
or maybe he just brought it from the set of Jag where Stephen Cohen was doing the music.
Right, exactly.
So I'm going to assume that even though IMDb doesn't tell me that Stephen Cohen did the music, I'm assuming the music from Jag was used in this.
That was part of how he got this gig, was that he could also bring naval costumes with him.
Yeah. But no, so this is what I'm saying. You can convince of a bigger world, a more expensive world, by just having a dude in a costume talking on a bridge. Because you look at that bridge, you look at the building behind the bridge, and you go, well, that kind of looks like a formal naval thing. I don't know why you fill it in, but you do in your head. Yeah. Bridges denote water, which makes you think, oh, that's probably an academy close to the harbor or whatever. You know what I mean? You start to put shit together in your head. Yeah. All it is, it's a guy in naval whites walking over a bridge, and yet it sells you what you need. And that's a great low budget technique. Yeah. But don't have to put ice cream on the shoe. Nobody knows why PM did that.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think there's also I think with the some of the sequences in The Office and stuff like that, where it's they're able to kind of use these locations over and over again that they've used in however many movies. I mean, that building that Speakman that the stunt person rappels off of, that's the same one I think in Rage. And so it's like they know that area. They know how to shoot in that area. They know how to stage things in there. I'm sure Cole S. McKay knows the whole layout of that thing and would know how to.
Oh, yeah. He's got that area hook, line, and sinker. He's bought and paid for several times over.
Exactly.
All right. So where do we rate this on PM, and where do we rate this within Jeff Speakman's films? Let's start off, Matt. Your rating for within PM Entertainment. Give us out of 5, and then tell us where it kind of sits. Does it sit near the top, the middle, or the bottom? That's all we want.
Yeah, so it's like a 3 or 4 for me. So I think it's probably in the 4 range for me, just because of the Shatner, the Speakman. That there are really great action sequences. So I mean, I rank this as like my 19th PM flick. And again, I've seen about 45, 47 of them. So this one's my 19th highest one. So it's top 20 for me. And so I guess that's probably should get it at least a 4-star if it's top 20. But we were ragging on the music, and the music is something to be ragged on. But overall, and the editing. And the editing, yeah, exactly. But I think when you see Speakman and Shatner on the tin, other than the music and the editing, it delivers on that.
Oh yeah, completely, 100%. If you're looking for Shatner, Speakman, and highway hijinks, Land of the Free delivers quite spectacularly in that regard. If you're looking for competent soundtrack or editing work, walk away now. But no, a wonderful fleet of cameos, fantastic acting, great stunts. I think a decent plot, a strong plot, a plot that you can hang your hat on, and the potential for a very bleak and dark ending, which they don't go with, but in my head, I'm going to imagine they go with. I think it's worth a three or a 3.5 out of 5. That's where I kind of rate it, and I have it probably in the low 20s, so in the 20, 21, 22, something like that out of PM. So it's a little lower than you on both counts, but I have higher standards that I hold PM Entertainment to, and I had just watched Last Man Standing, and Last Man Standing is like top 10, top 5 material. So
that's a good point. I think I've got Last Man Standing. I mean, it's definitely a top 10 for me, but I think it's even closer to that. Like it's probably more like top 5. If you watch, that's a good point, because I haven't seen that one in I don't know how long. I can't remember the last time I saw Last Man Standing. I've got Last Man Standing as my number 4. I can see kind of this is not a number 4 PM flick, and so I could totally see how you.
But I still think if someone comes to me and goes, should I watch the Jeff Speakman PM Entertainment films? The answer is yes. Hell's yes. Hell's bells yes. Do it.
Yeah, at least these two. I don't know. Hot Boys. I think is it Hot Boys or No Tomorrow? One of those two that he's in where he plays the sensei for Silk the Shocker.
That's Hot Boys.
Yeah, that's really not much of a scene for him. He's not really in it that much. So these are the two.
But his presence looms over it. I think.
Yes, exactly.
Hot Boys.
Yes. I mean, that's a fascinating one to watch anyway. You should. I'm not saying you shouldn't watch it. I'm just saying if you're watching it strictly for Speakman, you might be disappointed.
And where does this fall in all of Speakman's work? With Perfect Weapon, Street Night, The Expert, the Atlantis movie he made. What was the Outbreak?
Yeah,
what was that one that he made?
I think this is kind of in between. Sort of like
Scorpion 1 was another one he made.
Right. Like I would put this above those. I think Perfect Weapon, I haven't seen Perfect Weapon. I realized for this, I was like, I probably should watch it. I haven't watched it in like over 30 years. So probably like right after it came out. So I need to see it again. But Perfect Weapon, Expert, Street Night, those are kind of like their own thing. But I don't know. Street Night is one that like it kind of can go either way. And I feel like this one could kind of creep into that Street Night category for me. So, but this is in the middle tier of his stuff for me for sure. But I think it's better than a lot of some of the stuff that he's done.
Yeah, I've got to rewatch Running Red again pretty soon. I would put this either in the 3rd or the 4th spot behind Perfect Weapon and The Expert. I would put this in the 3rd or 4th spot. If Running Red is better than this, I'll put that in the 3rd spot, this in the 4th spot. And then I would put Street Night after that at probably number 5. And then I don't know what after that.
Yeah, it's all this other stuff. Yeah, so But no, I think you make a good point. I think Street Night is one that's like, it feels like it should be a lot better than it is. It's like when you watch it, you're just like, it has its moments, but like this one delivers a lot more than on the promise of what you want it to be.
No, definitely. Yeah. All right, Matt. Well, look, thank you ever so much for this, man. Another great episode, a very riff-heavy episode. Hopefully that'll keep the PM Entertainment riff fans happy. And we will speak to you soon again, sir, no doubt. Yeah. Down the road, down the PM Entertainment road, the holiday road of PM Entertainment. Holiday road. And then Stephen Kern goes, no, it doesn't go like that. It goes like this. Anyway.
You are now leaving the PM Entertainment podcast.